Don't kill me, man. Don't kill me, man. Don't kill me. Don't kill me, man.
I'm not going to kill you. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Welcome to Couch Potato Theater here on the Fandom Podcast Network. On Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. You may own your favorite movies digitally or on video, physical media and such. However, when they air on that cable TV, you love what you're watching so much that you don't get off that couch. And that's the definition of what our show is all about. My name is Kevin, and I'm going to be your co-host for this Couch Potato Theater. We are proud to celebrate Batman 1989, and we've got some special guests. But first, I need to introduce my co-host and co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network. Please welcome Mr. Kyle Wagner. What is up, buddy? How are you?
I am doing well. It's good to be here. It's a dark time in Gotham City, but don't worry. I have brought all my wonderful toys with me to protect us throughout this podcast.
Good. This is going to be a lot of fun because I'm really excited for our guest here. First, I would like to introduce Mr. Award-winning filmmaker, director, Mr. Johnny K. Welcome, sir. How are you?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me back. I'm good.
And just for the record, Johnny does not pay us to say award-winning film director. No, he probably should, but that's
he owes me a dinner. Damn it!
we're going for that Nicholson contract, Kevin.
I know, right? Well, we are excited to have you on, Johnny. And do you know why we're having you on?
Something about this Batman business that I've been hearing a lot about, right?
Yes. We are here to discuss Batman 1989. But you know what? I think we have some guests here with us, Johnny, that you've dragged along. Help me introduce them.
Yeah, we got a couple actors here. We just put out our Batman short film, The Oath. It just debuted 6 days ago on YouTube, and we are quickly climbing towards 60,000 views, which is amazing. And we've got a couple of our actors here with us tonight. So first is the Bat himself. We think he's the first Puerto Rican to ever play Batman, and that's Mr. Guillermo Mejia.
Otherwise known as William to us. What's up, Will? How are you?
Oh, I'm like spinning. Like he just said 60 on the way to 60K, and I am not sure how to handle that. Doing good though. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Good to have you, man.
Doing good.
Johnny, who else we got? We got someone else.
Yeah, we got another one. He's actually one of the most prepared actors I've ever worked with. No matter what role he's in, he always shows up and he treats it like, this is the set of The Godfather or Citizen Kane. He is as prepared as he can be. He knows his lines backward and forward, and he really gives a darn about what we're trying to do. In our movie, he plays Officer Joey Barnes, a Gotham City police officer, and the actor is Mr. Chris Conkey.
Chris, welcome to Couch Potato Theater on the Fandom Podcast Network. We are discussing Batman 1989, but we're going to be talking a little Oath here, and you're one of the stars, bro. Welcome. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to be here. It's like Will was saying, 60,000 like in less than 7 days. It's unbelievable. So the word has gotten out, and thanks to you all and podcasts and just word of mouth have helped us tremendously. So thanks for helping us with that.
You're welcome, and it's an honor to have you on now. I'm going to get your take and your thoughts on your experience because you didn't make we just had a we had a Culture Clash special discussing The Oath. And I wanted to talk a little bit more here. I'm going to add a little picture here. It is now on YouTube. It has dropped, The Oath, a Batman fan film. Johnny, this takes place. This is your film. You directed it. You wrote it. You got this motley crew together. And this takes place a week before the Batman 89 does. Briefly tell us why did you want to do a Batman film, and how you decided to set the time?
Because I'm a Batman nerd, Kevin. That's the answer. That's the answer. No, I've always loved Batman '89. Just grew up on that movie. I've mentioned in a couple other interviews, it was probably, as a 9-year-old kid, it was probably the single biggest event that had happened in my life when that movie came out. And just always been a huge Batman '89 fan. When we got the idea to come up with the Oath, I wrote the script, and I knew it was going to be a prequel that I wanted to slide right in before the start of Batman '89. We were really trying to create that vibe from the Tim Burton, Keaton movie. We had a lot of callbacks in there. I wanted to start the movie with the death of Johnny Gough. I wanted to introduce some original mobsters who worked under Carl Grissom, who was the same mob boss that ran, Jack Napier's outfit, who later became the Joker. And, as we made the movie and as I was writing the script and people found out we were going to do this, I had so many questions about, which supervillain are you going to put in here? Who's it going to be? Who's Batman going to be fighting? And my answer was always, no, we're not. This is not a supervillain movie. There's enough going on in Gotham City a week before Batman '89 that you don't need a supervillain. You've got, the whole city is under the control of the mob. You've got a brand new district attorney, Harvey Dent. You've got a mayor who's trying to, throw a 200th birthday party for the city, but citizens are too scared to leave their house to even come out. Like, there's so much going on there, and there's so much sand in the sandbox to play in that it was a pretty easy choice to write our movie to happen basically as a prequel and lead right up to Batman '89, which happens to be one of my favorite movies of all time.
Well, for those of you listening to the podcast, make sure you check us out on YouTube. We got a fun slideshow to accommodate all this. And I wanted to also mention, for those of you that don't know that you are listening and watching here, Johnny, you're in the film business now. You've done some short films, and you are an award-winning filmmaker now. The Killer of Grassy Ridge, your first film, a brief little horror film, has won a few awards. Congratulations, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah, thanks. That was it's a big deal to me. I don't have a history in filmmaking. I never went to film school. I'd wanted to make a film for many, many years, but I always got in my own way. I came up with a bunch of excuses, why I should not do it. And one day I got tired of the excuses, decided to make my first movie just as a personal challenge to get it out there for me, just to see if I could do it. The fact that it grew legs and, ended up in over 50 festivals, I think on 6 continents. I'm still looking for the Antarctica Film Festival so we can get the last continent. But it ended up in all these festivals. And then we started winning things. And we won, Best U.S. Short Film. We won Best Cinematography, Best Director, Best Horror, Best Thriller. Those are things that someone's first movie should not win. So it was kind of a gateway drug to me because it gave me that high. And now I just want to feel like that all the time. So I want to, keep making a movie a year. And if I can crank out a short film a year, I'll be pretty happy with that. And The Oath is the most recent of those.
Well, we recently had you, William, and I'm sorry, is it Jerry, right? Jerry and Oz on your other co-stars. We had you guys on Culture Clash episode 212, where we celebrated your release of this film that just dropped December 7th, 2022. How many views you got on that now, bro?
Coming up on 60,000 pretty quick. And it was December 6th. I think you're still in Australia, Kevin. You're a day.
Oh, it is 6. That's right.
It was December 6th, so it's not even been a week, and we're almost at 60,000 views, that's not a big deal to a huge YouTube channel, but that is a very big deal to a small YouTube channel and a small and growing film studio. It's by far the most watched thing we've ever put out. I'm super proud of that.
The 7th was when we had you guys on the actual show live on the Fandom Podcast Network. So make sure you check that out. Go to the Fandom Podcast Network and watch that show. Will, we obviously had you talk about your experience on that as well. Started with that awesome Batman suit. And that was a really, really cool story of how you decided to do this, how you decided to want to take this further, Johnny. Just briefly mention, it's because Will had a Batman suit and you're like, we can do something here.
It's all his fault. He showed up.
It is my fault.
We turned the lights off. We fired up the smoke machine, and 9 months later, we have a Batman movie. So,
if it was only that simple, though, good. There were some steps in between.
You've got some people talking about The Oath already, Johnny.
Yeah, the one up on top. I mean, we put that in like the biggest font that would fit. It's almost bigger than the title of the movie. Comic Book Resources CBR, which is awesome. You know, an awesome website that I've gone to for decades at this point to check out comic and movie stuff. They just kind of casually put an article out there about us the other day, and they referred to us in the headline as studio quality, and that's just 2 words. But you know, those 2 words, excuse me, meant a lot to me. You know, because a lot of people worked really hard to kind of get this movie the best that we could get it within our budget, which was not a tremendous budget. And the fact that we have an institution like CBR calling us studio quality, it would be different if it was like my mom calling us studio quality, but this is CBR. And I'm super, super proud of that testimonial. And that article actually really has driven a lot of views our way, views that we would not have otherwise have gotten. So I got to take somebody at CBR out for dinner or something now.
Somebody said, and I agree, I think Tim Burton would be proud. Are you waiting on that call on what he thought of the film?
I keep my phone charged at all times, just in case, Tim. I think he still has my number, but yeah.
Well, I want to get Chris, I want to get your thoughts here. You co-starred in this film, and I really want to hear, first of all, how did you meet Johnny, and how did this come about for you?
So I met Johnny. I started out before I started getting speaking roles, like a lot of people, as an extra, and I happened to be working on a film called The Comey Rule, which I believe was November of 2019. It starred Jeff Daniels. It's a decent show. I just remember Johnny was in my little group of extras. We were all grouped. We were in front of a hot dog stand. I remember Jeff Daniels was buying a cup of coffee and then went and sat on a bench. And it was supposed to be June of 2017, but it was November. So I remember we were freezing in our polo shirts. We were supposed to look like it was summer and you could see our breath. And I remember asking some of the extras, how's this going to work? I mean, it's like 35 degrees out. We're freezing. It's supposed to be summer. But Johnny was in my little group, and so I recognized him. I don't think we talked a lot that day, but then I saw him again in January where we actually filmed an active shooter training video for the FBI. They've updated their active shooter guidance, and we were filming in a abandoned bar in Georgetown. And I went up to him and I was like, yeah, I recognize you. We worked on the Comey Rule, and we started talking. And we ended up staying in touch. And long story short, Johnny actually originally gave me a few speaking lines in his movie Red Eagle 1. Which predated Batman. And after I did okay on that, or at least I got Johnny's seal of approval, he offered me the role of Joey Barnes. And I remember when he said, I'm going to do a Batman film. And I was just like, it's like that meme of that dog, you know, when it shows like Vietnam and the dog's like this, and it's got like all this imagery of stuff, like when, you know, like when someone comes to the door or whatever, it'll show like the dog having flashbacks, you know, or, you know, when the vacuum cleaner goes off, the dog's like, I just remembered like where I saw Batman for the first time in '89 when I remember the Batmobile. I was like, where did I put it? Where are my action figures? Like all these memories just hit me. And I was like, oh, a Batman film. That would be cool, you know? And I mean, the gears are spinning, and then he told me about the story, and I'm just, I mean, he didn't have to ask me twice. I think, you know, I was like, yes, you know, it's like, yes, I'll do it. And that's really it. And seeing how it came to fruition, putting on that uniform for the first time, it's just really been a surreal experience. And this is a great crew. It's been really a dream for me as somebody who's relatively new to acting.
That's fantastic. I love hearing stuff like that, especially when you create relationships and friendships on other productions. And, you know, Johnny being able to spot the talent, man, and bring him to the game. I think that's great.
Yeah, it was awesome. And, you know, it's interesting you mentioned that, because a lot of acting sometimes is built on networking, right? It's just, I mean, I remember I met John Broughton for the first time, who helped on this. Actually, I believe the first time I saw him was at AwesomeCon, and he had a table set up with the Farragut forward, and he gave me some of the DVDs, and that was the first time I'd met him. And it was just, I don't know, it's just really cool. It's like, and then all of a sudden I think I met Will there for the first time as well. And now here I am in a movie with him, and then there's John helping, and then here's Johnny again. So I just can't shake these guys, you know. It's like, I'm not part of this family, you know. It's like I go to a cookout at Johnny's house every year. It's like I'm one of the gang now. So it's not only been a professional, like, you know, colleague working relationship, actor, director, etc., but these are like lifelong friends now, and that's really a cool aspect of this business sometimes.
That's fantastic. Will, I wanted to give you a minute here. I got pictures up here of you in your Batman suit. Your original picture that I got one of them up here that Johnny took, and then some on-set behind the scene shots here. Do you remember this night here? It looked pretty cold.
Actually, I do remember that night. The one you're talking about, the one on the right.
Yeah.
Me and Johnny hanging out. Like, Johnny can probably attest to what the actual weather was, because once I'm in that bat suit, everything is like 30 degrees warmer. I think that's the second night, because we're standing in front of that infamous red door that I had to spend so much time next to. I think it was probably, and you know, Chris can also talk about it. It was probably that second night about 35 degrees, which, you know, bad, but for everybody else, for me, I was like, this is perfect. Like, I can shoot all night long in this outfit. And I did, thanks to Johnny. But if you're hoping that I can be like, oh my God, I was miserable. No, not really. I was toasty and nice and comfortable. Not comfortable. That's the wrong word. I was toasty. I'll say that much at least. But yeah, no, I mean, as far as the other pictures you got up though, it's kind of surreal. Like that, looking at that picture, and I think I described it in a couple of different interviews now. I described that first picture as kind of like, or those first pictures as, you know, posters that needed a movie built around it. And I think Johnny was thinking the same thing based on what a conversation I had with him a couple days ago. But even just that middle shot right there, and that's not behind the scenes of us filming the movie. That's behind the scenes of us actually taking the pictures. Right. And even that picture alone looks like something out of, you know, behind the scenes stuff of actually filming a movie. It was quick. It was quick for me and Johnny. It was quick for us to realize that to stop at just some pictures in a garage would be a waste of the potential that we had in front of us.
Chris, I wanted to get your thoughts about Johnny as a director, because you obviously saw him as a fellow actor when you guys were on set together on that other production. Tell me a little about Johnny, the director.
Johnny, you know, it's the one word I use is quality. Like we always joke around, you're never going to have one take with Johnny. You're going to get many because he's a perfectionist. But, you know, for people who are new to this, I remember like some of the extras when we were doing Ferry It Forward, I think were like, man, this is like the 10th take or something. And I'm like, no. You got to understand, like, you're going to like the finished product. I mean, there's a method to the madness, the detail orientation, everything. I mean, the sets, the set dressing. I mean, Belle did an incredible job, by the way, on our set dressing and everything. And I've been so impressed. I mean, let's just all face it. We've seen some indie films where it's like shot on an iPhone 3G. It's shot on a potato or whatever, like the memes say. And it's like, you know, the sound quality is like a kazoo or something. And it's like, you know, hey, I give people a credit for making indie films. Like, you know, it's like Johnny says, get a camera out and just shoot. You know, if you're looking to be a filmmaker, get out there and just put something to paper and do something. But Johnny just takes it to a level. I mean, like the soundtrack in The Oath. Everybody I've shown any of Johnny's films to have been like, my God, like this isn't like a typical like low budget indie studio. Like whoever's at the helm is putting together something that I think even some higher level studios would be very jealous of. I mean, there's a quality and a fit and finish to Johnny's work. That's why he can tell me I'm going to film a movie about toilet manufacturing. I'm in it because it's going to be badass. There's going to be probably bullets flying and, you know, probably like, you know, I don't know, there's going to be something cool in there. And it's like, I'm down, you know.
That sounds like a Thomas Anderson film, personally. Well, Chris, I wanted to ask you one other thing that I asked the other guys about was the red carpet premiere that you guys had. I believe it was last Sunday, if I remember correctly, as of this recording. Tell us a little bit about that. It looks like you guys had a fun time.
We did. I was just, again, I was just mind blowing. It was my first real premiere for any film I've been in. And, you know, again, whatever Johnny touches, it turns to gold. So, I mean, I had no doubt it was going to be awesome. But even, it just blew my mind. It was, so I mean, we had Oz fly in from Atlanta. So it was great to see him again. Oz is really kind of my acting mentor, by the way. He's got a little bit more experience than me, and he's really been helpful as I've gotten my career started. So to see him in person, and Jerry as well. I know Jerry lives about 100 miles away, so it's good to see everybody. And I mean, just seeing yourself on the big screen. I mean, you know, not to like toot our own horns here, but it's just it's really, as a little kid when you're at the movies, I never really thought, I never really thought I'd see myself on a big screen at a movie theater, and then I did, and I was like, this is actually happening. So many thanks to Johnny for putting that evening together for everybody.
Gotcha.
The guests had a great time too.
One last question regarding your character that you played. Jerry's character, this troubled, police officer that has to make a moral decision. You're, I guess, kind of his partner. Give us a little bit about the background of your character and what angle you took with it.
Well, my character is a little younger. He's a little more green behind the ears. You can actually see the rank on Jerry's uniform versus mine. You can tell he's a little more senior. I think the most interesting fact about my character, though, is he's a total Batman stan. Like he's a fanboy. I remember Johnny sent me the notes to study beforehand. He was like, Joey Barnes probably has some Batman posters in his room. And I'm like, well, that makes two of us, right? So it was really a good character for me because I felt that youthful exuberance that, when I was able to kind of geek out, like, do you think the bat got him? Like there was actually a genuine excitement in me. Like, oh man, I hope Batman exists, right? It really helped me kind of relive that. So younger guy looks up to Jerry. I think that's another thing. I think he recognizes there's corruption in Gotham, but really believes that Jerry's one of the more upstanding cops that's really trying to do a good thing. And you'll see in the movie, it gives him a little bit of a pep talk.
Gotcha. That's really cool. You were great in it, by the way. I was living vicariously through you because I can kind of see me in that situation. Johnny.
Yeah, I just want to throw one thing onto that. Chris's character was so important because our main character, Jerry, or Sergeant Kelly is the character. He was a man of few words. He was written as a man who was not going to talk a lot. He was not going to pour his feelings out and tell you what he was thinking. There was no exposition. So it was really important. Chris had to do twice the work because Chris's character really served the purpose to tell the audience how great of a cop, Frank Kelly is, and tell the audience that his wife is, sick and on chemo, because Sergeant Kelly's not going to say all those things. So we really needed a character like Joey Barnes, who Chris played, to really be the talk box almost, because our star was certainly not a man of many words, and we had to. Chris did a great job in the scenes that he was in, really bringing the audience into the story and kind of looking at the scenario from the audience's point of view, I think.
Thanks, John.
That's really cool. That's cool insight. That is really, really cool. I am so excited for you guys. Johnny, as we move into Batman 89 here, I want you to kind of set the viewers and the listeners up here a little bit behind the scenes, because you could basically watch The Oath first before you watch Batman 89. You got the setting right. You got the actors right. You got the costumes. Your entire crew was fantastic in this production. You made it feel like we are ready to step into Batman 89. Set us up here before we actually get into Batman 89.
Yeah, sure. It's like I mentioned a second ago. Put Batman aside and put the supervillains aside for a minute and just look at what was going on in Gotham City, right before Batman 89, with, citizens being terrified to come out of their houses, and the crime was so bad. And, you couldn't find a good cop in Gotham because they were all corrupt and they were all making more money taking bribes from the mob than they were, their own paychecks and their own salaries. So, we don't have to talk about Mr. Freeze or the Riddler. I mean, Gotham is already interesting enough before, there ever is a Joker, in my opinion. And we can get into it more when we really talk about Batman 89. But in this version, there's definitely something not quite right about Bruce Wayne. He's pretty twisted himself. You have a billionaire, I assume a billionaire, at least a millionaire, and he could probably dump a lot of money into juvenile justice programs or some type of civic programs to help keep crime down, but he would actually just rather put on a costume and pummel people to death at night. So there's something a little twisted there about somebody that wants to do that. And, Burton, just that whole world that Tim Burton created. And I'm talking specifically about Batman 89. Batman Returns is a different animal, which we can talk about later, even though it was still Tim Burton. But there was just something so special about the setting of Batman 89, the production design, with the late Anton Furst, all the work that went in to really build something gothic and scary and unique. It's not like they just went to, Pittsburgh or Chicago to film their version of Gotham, which we saw obviously in later movies. They really created something on that Pinewood Studios backlot completely from scratch. And my opinion is that quality has never been matched since then, not even in Batman Returns. They've just never been able to attain that sense of Gotham to me, just my opinion. And I definitely wanted to kind of dial into that tone. And those are some of the comments on YouTube and around the internet that mean the most to me when they're reviewing The Oath, when they talk about, wow, you guys really put a lot of time and effort to try to dial in that 1989 tone. Those are the comments that really kind of mean the most to me, because they're right. We did put a lot of time and effort into that. And I'm glad somebody else sees that besides me.
Well, you guys all did a great job. And Chris and Will, I appreciate you guys coming on, because I'm really excited to talk about Batman 89 with you guys. And I just want to let the listeners and viewers know, go to YouTube, look up The Oath 2022, a Batman fan film, or go to Chaotica Studios YouTube page, and you can see it there. Is there anything else too, Johnny, that can make it easier for the listeners and viewers to watch this and maybe, participate in any way?
Yeah, I do it about 200 times a day right now. Just Google Batman Oath, and you will find everything. You'll find all our behind the scenes stuff that's been released so far. You'll find some spots we did on the music and the composers, some actor interviews. If you just Google Batman Oath, it'll be in your face. I do it every day.
Perfect. Well, I think that sets us up, guys. I think it's time to head us up into a little bit of Batman 89. All right, guys, we are talking Batman 89, and we were just talking The Oath. This is my mock-up, by the way, okay? I didn't illegally do this. This is my little Oath DVD that I'm hoping maybe sometime might come to fruition. But this is what it would look like if you were to find it. But otherwise, please go to YouTube, check out The Oath, and get ready for some Batman 89, as we are here to do. And this movie had a huge impact for fans everywhere. We all remember when we first saw Batman 89. We're going to get into that shortly. But first, let's get a little bit of plot description here for Batman 1989. Gotham City. Crime boss Carl Grissom effectively runs the town, but there's a new crime fighter in town, Batman. Grissom's right-hand man is Jack Napier, a brutal man who is not entirely sane. After falling out between the two, Grissom has Napier set up with the police, and Napier falls to his apparent death in a vat of chemicals. However, he soon reappears as the Joker and starts to reign a terror in Gotham City. Meanwhile, reporter Vicky Vale is in the city to do an article on Batman. She soon starts a relationship with Batman's everyday persona, billionaire Bruce Wayne. And of course, Carl Grissom, played by Jack Palance. Batman is Michael Keaton. Jack Napier, a.k.a. the Joker, Mr. Jack Nicholson. And Vicky Vale, the lovely Kim Basinger. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into some fun Wayback Machine time. I'm going to start with you, Johnny, since this is basically we're doing this because of you. We love Batman. We would have done it eventually, right, Kyle? I mean,
absolutely. I mean, we are talking about a movie that at the time there was nothing on the comic book movie landscape that was quality. You were looking at a couple of live action Incredible Hulk films at that point, wrapping up the series. Maybe Punisher with Dolph Lundgren, which Kevin, I know you have a personal soft spot for.
Yeah.
A really, really bad Captain America movie. But you had this, and I mean, the hype for this began almost 6 to 8 months prior with just a movie poster making the circulations of just the bat symbol. And from there, the rest is history, because what a film, and a film that nobody thought could actually be pulled off at the time.
Johnny, I remember for the first time of all the young years of me going to movies since I was a kid, seeing a poster in the theater, having to wait a whole year to see that movie. I'd never seen that done before. Usually it was like a couple of months before it would come out, you would see the posters coming up. But I remember in 1988, summer of 88, Batman, 1989, we had to wait that long. So when and where did you first see this movie, and what kind of impact did it have on you? Were you here in this one of these big theater openings here, like here at the Man's Chinese Theater down in Hollywood?
Yeah, that looks exactly like the theaters in East Tennessee where I grew up. No, I grew up in a small to medium-sized town in East Tennessee, and I can remember the mall, which is where we had a couple malls, one older and one newer, and the mall was the place to be on a Friday night. And obviously, I think if it wasn't the opening night, it was opening weekend that I was there for Batman. Full disclosure, I was 9 years old. I have no problems admitting my age because I was the target demographic for Batman. I was the target audience. I ate it up. I drank it up. Anything that had this logo, that I'm wearing on my shirt right now, I would just grab it where I wanted it. And yeah, the first time I saw Batman, I remember it was the first time in my life that I had been in a full house theater that was so packed that I had to sit right next to a complete stranger. And I can still kind of remember what that guy's cologne smells like. I've got a real sensitive nose, and I can remember it's because I'm deaf and blind, but my smelling is fantastic. I can still kind of remember what that guy's cologne smelled like, but it's the first time I ever had to sit right next to a complete stranger, which was weird to me because I didn't know this guy, but I got to hear him make his comments and, exasperations all the way through the movie. I specifically remember the noise he made right after the armory scene when we see the hidden cameras behind the mirror, that's looking at Vicky Vale and Alexander Knox. The guy beside me is like, "Oh, hidden cameras." And I still remember that like to this day. So I had it, this has been 33 years and I can remember it. But, I was just blown away. That movie was made for me as a 9-year-old kid. I wanted the toys. I wanted the shoes. I wanted the everything. If you remember that shot in Wayne's World when it shows Garth and he's all decked out in all the Reebok gear, like that's what I looked like with all my Batman gear. Like,
but yeah, I think you and everyone was wearing those Batman shirts at the time. Chris, I want to get your thoughts. Opening weekend, did you see it? What was the first time seeing this movie experience like for you?
So I was a little younger. I was 7, and my parents were a little more hesitant to let me see it. I think I was right on the cusp of being allowed to see like PG-13. So my dad, it's funny. I'm going to narc on him a little bit. My dad used to actually copy VHS tapes. You could sort of copy them, and like he would actually try to edit out the bad stuff. So I remember the first time I saw it, I was actually with my cousins in Florida visiting. It was 89. And I remember, or maybe it was a little bit later, it might have been actually 90 because it had come out on VHS. If you remember, now things come out on streaming in like a week after they're at the theater. But it used to take forever to get a VHS copy of the movie. Like when Ninja Turtles came out, I remember it felt like 5 years before I could see it on video after I saw it in the theater. So my dad actually made like a bootleg copy, which made it even look more like noir because copies were never as original. It's like twice as dark. And I was like, oh, God, this is spooky. But I loved it. I mean, I think the part he edited out was when he fries the guy at the table and the guy's like burning up and like I think my dad edited that. I think when Vicky Vale's like kind of going down on Jack Nicholson a little bit to distract him, I think that was cut out. There were a few other things. But anyway, I loved it. And just like Johnny, like I still have the Batmobile. I think I sent everybody a picture. I have the original 89 Batmobile toy that the action figures went in. I have the Ertl models of the Batmobile and the Joker van they sold in the grocery store. And I remember bugging my dad until he finally got them for me. I still have those. I have the micro machines. I have a Trapper Keeper that I think I have somewhere that I used at school. I mean, I became obsessed as well. I have the action figures somewhere. And it's the thing. It's like a flashbulb memory. Like, my parents know where they were when JFK was shot. I remember watching Batman with my cousins in a blurry CRT TV that had like wood grain around it, sitting right up in the camera. Just glued to it. And my dad was like, oh boy, here we go. Because I think he knew I was going to demand every toy that year for Christmas. So that's why we're seeing it.
That is cool. I love that story. Well, I'm going to take a guess here. You're a little bit younger than some of us here. I'm going to say you first watched Batman during the streaming age. Am I wrong?
I don't appreciate you throwing out my business like that. I'll have you know. No, so I will though. I will say I'll bring a little bit of a different perspective to that. It came out in '89. I'm an '87 kid, so I would not have gone seeing this in theaters. I'll say that much. My first memory of seeing this movie was my stepdad was big videophile, so he already. I had seen a lot of movies through him, so I was starting to develop like a big taste for wanting to see movies. And ironically enough, my stepdad was a friend of the family. My dad and my mom were still together. So my dad was a huge Batman fan of '66. That's what he was into. He was a bam, zip, pow. So also is not following pop culture. So he sees in Blockbuster of the time, for some of the people watching this, Blockbuster was a rental service. It's like Netflix, but brick and mortar. So go figure.
I feel insulted by that, by the
way. hey, in high school, I had a Blockbuster card before I had a driver's license. So just so you know, I'm not
yesterday. I feel like yesterday to me.
I'm not as young as you think I am, but I'm not as old as the Gen Zers might think I am. But it was an interesting experience because for some of you guys, the Summer of the Bat, the only thing that existed before the Summer of the Bat was just, you know, Adam West. I was bombarded by Michael Keaton and Kevin Conroy at the same time. So it was this weird thing. The music was not as impactful. Like, I love the music from '89, but I also had that opening scene for Kevin Conroy. But what I do remember, the impact that '89 made was that I'd never seen, and this might blow some people away right now, but '89 was just something that you felt was like, this could be the real world. Like, this could be what Batman looks like if he was in our world. Just seeing like a functional black suit of armor instead of just the gray tights that Adam West wore. Like, yeah. So basically my dad brought home a copy, not knowing the contents of this movie, because he never saw it in theaters. That was not his thing. And I didn't have any older cousins that could warn anybody about it. So they just brought it over on a Friday afternoon after school. And I must have been maybe 5 years old, I think. So it was right before Returns was coming out. So it was like in preparation of Returns. And I was finally old enough to be able to appreciate that one. So Dad was like, here, go, let's watch this one to prepare for the other one. And the moment the movie starts talking about Johnny Gough getting ripped and taking a fall off a roof, my dad got real quiet all of a sudden, because the movie first started with like an intro of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, if anybody remembers that, selling you merchandise or whatever from the Warner Brothers store. So my dad was very excited first couple of minutes, and then all of a sudden, you know, stuff started happening, and my dad's like got quiet and actually debated turning off the movie. And my mom's like, it's Batman, just let them watch. I don't remember if I slept well, but the next 2 years became just like you guys had the Summer of the Bat. I just basically had like puberty of the Bat. Like for the next couple of years, it was like Batman pajamas, Batman action figures. I don't know, like it's all a blur. I just remember going to sleep every night for like maybe 3 years in my little Batman pajamas. It was the logo. I had the little Velcro patches for the cape. The day I outgrew those pajamas must have been the saddest day of my young life. And there are some more stories in those pajamas. Recently, Johnny got together and got to see my mom. I had adventures. I was Batman in those little pajamas. Little did I know.
Of the Bat. I love it.
Little would I know that 30 years later, we'd still be here and I'd still be excited to wear that little cape. It's a bigger cape.
And now your voice is a little lower when you recite the lines, right?
It depends on who you ask.
The truth of the matter is, though, Kim Basinger in this film did cause some puberty issues, I'm sure, for many people.
Kyle, it's your turn. Tell us briefly your first time watching this, the impact it had on you.
The year was 1989. I was going into my freshman year of high school. I was 13 at the time. And all things ironic, I was in Florida when this movie premiered, and I saw this movie about 8 times that summer because I spent the summer down here with family. It blew me away. I mean, the hype for this movie just built and built and built. I can remember having all of the character posters hanging in my room back up in Alaska. I had a Batman, I had a Joker, I had a Vicky Vale, I had a Batmobile poster as well. It was just getting transported to a world that I had only seen on pages, truthfully. This to me was probably the first true comic experience on the big screen that felt real to me in that aspect. It pulled you in completely to that world. It's not like when you were watching Incredible Hulk on television live action or some of those other films that had come out before. This movie really just took it to a whole new world. Johnny talked a little bit earlier, the world Tim Burton created for Batman '89. This is before I think Burton really kind of dove a lot more into his gothic side and pushing the envelope beyond here. I think he was still a little bit reined in, and it really worked out perfectly because this was the Gotham City I always kind of imagined. Dark, gritty, a little bit over the top in certain places, but still recognizable as a city that could exist somewhere on this planet. And it was so well done, and just so many amazing performances. And obviously Jack Nicholson as the Joker just steals this movie and is still considered to this day one of the greatest performances in a comic book movie. And Kevin, I just want you to remember, you are my number one guy.
Well said, Kyle. Well said, guys. William, what's up?
Kyle just reminded me one thing that we did not manage to make work in the Oath was, I remember asking Johnny, I'm like, God, I know it doesn't fit, but could we have Bob the Goon somewhere here?
I love Bob the Goon.
We all love Bob the Goon.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he's going to come up a little bit later here in the podcast, but I just wanted to briefly mention my experience with Batman. Now, I remember, as I mentioned, for the first time ever, because I was always going to theaters as long as I can remember since Star Wars. You know, it was theaters, it was drive-ins, theaters, it was drive-ins, and getting excited about upcoming movies that were, you'd see the posters, whether they were in the newspaper or in the theaters, and you would get excited because that's when you would first hear about it. There was no internet. Maybe you saw a commercial, but mostly you saw them in print somewhere. And I was seeing these posters like when I'm watching Die Hard in '88, you know, in the theater or whatever it was. I'm like, I got to wait a whole year for Batman. And the buzz for Batman was just huge, especially when you started hearing about the casting stuff. And I remember too, is at the Arlington Theater here in my hometown of Santa Barbara. And I remember having to actually like buy tickets and get in line a few days ahead of time when tickets went on sale and wait outside to buy your tickets a few days before for the midnight showing. And this was the first midnight showing that I actually remember going to. I remember I was meeting a bunch of people there. My friend Varick, who I was crushing on a big time, she looked great. She was wearing this skin tight, like, I want to say vinyl dress, and she called it her hefty bag dress. And whew, she looked hot. Barrick, if you're listening, you know what I'm talking about. And we were with a bunch of our friends, and we stayed up till midnight on that Thursday night to watch this film. And it was just a wonderful experience. And I remember as soon as it came out on VHS, I was one of the first people to buy it as well. And it was such a huge thing. Everyone was wearing the Batman t-shirts. Everyone had Batman this, Batman that. And it was the first time a superhero movie really engulfed my lifetime for a while. My buddy Cole and I used to do these lip sync videos of our favorite rock stars, and we did Guns N' Roses. He was Slash, I was Axl, and he's wearing his Batman shirt, you know, and because it was during this time, it was a good time. It was the first time I remember seeing a movie really promoted the way that it was, and the buzz that it got was one of the biggest that I can remember at the time. And then it kind of became normal. You started seeing midnight premieres of all films and such. So it was a big deal for all of us there. But I wanted to dive a little bit deeper. Johnny, I'm going to start with you here about how, obviously we talked about first seeing this for the first time, but what makes this movie different and how does it stand out from other films and the other Batman movies? Because for you, it hit a chord, dude, to where you're like, I'm going to make a prequel movie about this that's going to jump right into the film.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of the realism, you know, the realism of it. And even if you just compare Batman '89 to Batman Returns, you know, to what Kyle was saying a second ago, Batman Returns really was Tim Burton unhinged, you know, just with no reins, just doing what he wanted to do, which as an artist, that's awesome that, you know, he could do that and pull it off. You also take a pretty deep dive into Tim Burton's head for a couple of hours with Batman Returns, and it's a completely different world than Batman. And it's, you know, Batman Returns was much more over the top, in my opinion. I mean, you have the Penguin driving around in like an inflatable duck tank or, you know, whatever that was. But like there was none of that in '89. '89 was just really pretty serious, even though we have people falling into vats of toxic chemicals and, you know, some over the top stuff. But there was just such a dark, sinister, serious tone to it. I just love the overall landscape. And really the only superhero movie that, you know, I could remember comparing it to as a kid was Superman '78, and also some of the sequels. I guess, you know, at least two 2, 3 Superman movies were out before Batman 89.
I think 4. I think actually all 4 were out before then.
Yeah, and watch Superman 3 and 4, and then watch Batman 89, and look at the difference in those. I mean, it was just something just so out of left field. And my mom, she was kind of the opposite of, I think, Chris's parents. My mom said, "Of course you can go see Batman because we know what Batman is. It's safe. You have the Batman toys, and we watch the Adam West show. So go have a blast watching Batman." And then right after that, I'm like, wow, there's some kind of deep, dark corruption and mimes and machine guns, and Batman actually has 30 caliber Browning machine guns built into the tire wells of the Batmobile, and he's blowing mobsters up. And I'm like, wow, this is a darker, sinister tone. And as a 9-year-old kid, I loved it.
Chris, what about you? How does the movie stand out for you and compare to other films if you'd like to? But what makes this one special for you?
Well, I wanted to highlight a kind of a trivia fact. I went to the University of Georgia. I'm a proud Bulldog, and Kim Basinger went to UGA. She actually donated the lights to UGA's tennis complex. There's a picture of her in '91 signing autographs on the campus of UGA. But like Ryan Seacrest, who's also a UGA grad, she stopped early, shy of getting her degree, I believe, because she went to LA to pursue acting. So it's my only commonality with any of the cast members. Go Dogs. She grew up in Athens, which is the town where the what do you call it, the University of Georgia is located. So she's Bulldog through and through. I think what really got me was the fact that I think I sent Johnny a picture of me in a Batman costume. I think he's going to do like a little montage of all of us, like in our costumes. We all had a Batman costume. But I think for me, I think Will touched on this. It felt like I too grew up. My dad, my parents were like, oh yeah, Batman's wham, pow, thud, thwack, some of the other ones, biff, whatever the other words were. It took it from being campy to like, wow, like I was getting into G.I. Joes and Ninja Turtles. And even Ninja Turtles, that Ninja Turtle movie was a little, I won't say darker, but like the RoboCop, like remember that? That was not, it was not like dark. It was like hyper violent. But they were so well done. I think Batman kind of fit in that late 80s action genre of like not campy anymore. These movies were very much action packed and kind of dark and highlighted some, real world problems like crime, whether it was Die Hard, Ninja Turtles, whatever, gangs. I think that really stood out for me was that it really took Batman to like someone you could really root for, and I wasn't afraid to let him get a little violent, It was like, oh man, because these guys are real now instead of these kind of clown looking thugs and the campy, Adam West version. Like now I remember watching him dangle a guy over the ledge, like, oh my God, is he going to drop that guy and kill him? And it's only like 5 minutes in. And that's really, it changed my perspective. And I know a lot of people hate on the Batman Returns, but I still had all those cars. I mean, I'll admit it. I had the logo changed a little bit. I had that shirt too. It's like totally invested in that Tim Burton atmosphere, like for the rest of my life. It really changed me in my perspective.
Well, give us your thoughts on how this movie stands out for you. Obviously, you going through Batman puberty says a lot. But I know for you to actually go and buy a movie set realistic costume, I know this movie also had an enormous impact on you.
It did, and both of them. Like I'm right there with you, Chris. Some might say, Batman and Batman Returns are different movies. As a little kid, you don't really notice all the stylistic changes and all that stuff. They're just two movies set made by the same guy, and it's got the same Batman. So for me, it was a whole stretch of time that this Batman started a very long stretch of time. But for me, when we're talking about what makes Batman '89 stand out, for me, I think it's two things. I think it's the first one. You guys have all touched on this a little bit. Is that you can tell that this is being taken seriously, as opposed to the well done chum and all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, I adore the Adam West 66 stuff. Like I love that movie. All of that stuff is great. But this rings different. That you can tell was fun, and it was just like groovy, and it was just like it was just enjoyable. This took itself seriously. There was thought behind it. There was like, you didn't really sugarcoat things, at least not that way. Like right now, obviously, like now it's so much worse, and it gets it sometimes gets darker, but not fun. This was dark, but still nuanced and fantastical enough to hit that sweet, perfect spot of like, this is dark and real, but it's not so dark and so real that you're like, that guy that Batman scared probably died a week later of a drug overdose because he couldn't handle it. You don't know, like that. You don't think about that kind of stuff, and that's not what this movie is. It's just the right level of dark. So I credit that as the one reason. The other reason I think is, and I got into it just a little bit later, but this movie was, and both Tim Burton movies were just marketed incredibly so. Like you mentioned that earlier, Kyle. Like I probably, if you melted down the amount of Batman action figures and toys that I had, you could have built me a whole house, or at least a full-size Batmobile. Like if I had a Batman, my brother had to have the same Batman, because obviously we're not going to share. That's not what brothers do. So just,
Kyle,
the amount of toys that this stuff just produced, the marketing, it was right. It was just that era where it doesn't matter how dark it was, you could still market it to kids. Like Batman,
right?
Like,
yeah,
you had the Happy Meals. I remember watching in RoboCop, the TV show. I remember watching Rambo, the cartoon. Heck, even Police Academy had a cartoon for kids. I'm like, yeah. Let's think about it. But it worked. It worked. Like any kid that saw that logo and had the pajamas, the T-shirts, the whatever, you needed to consume it. So those are the two reasons I would say are why that movie worked as well as it did.
Kyle, what about you?
For me, with this movie, I think this is one of these generational comic book films, and we've had a few of these in our lifetime. Obviously, things are a little bit different now in the current modern landscape, but you go back, you look at Superman 78, you look at this film, you look at the first Blade film, and even the first Iron Man film. I consider those generational comic book movies that changed how people viewed how a comic book movie could be done. Batman 89 does that. But more importantly, too, I think Batman 89, it set its own world, even with sequels that tied into it. But to me, the biggest thing, too, that was generational that Batman 89 created was Batman the Animated Series, because that was all inspired off what Tim Burton had done with the 89 Batman film. And I mean, you had Kevin Conroy for 20 plus years being Batman for a generation. And so when you look at what Tim Burton did, inspiring the creation of Batman the Animated Series together, these two things probably shaped Batman as a character in movies up until the time when Christopher Nolan started doing Batman Begins and The Dark Knight and things like that. And it's just a whole thing. And I got to say it real quick. Thank you, Kevin Conroy. We know he passed away recently. Thank you again for being a staple of not only my preteen and teenage years to being able to share that for generations of children and being probably, in my opinion, still the most iconic Batman, at least voice-wise.
Well said. Well said. You guys have all nailed the points on how this movie makes me feel. And it's one of those things where everyone has revered this film. This is the movie that set the standard for comic movies when you think about it, not just in style, in action, in set production, in cast, but also the way it's marketed, with the soundtrack, everything that was involved with this hit gold in one way or another. And it's just one of those fantastic moments in pop culture that I think that stands out for me personally, because when it came to big movie releases, I compared them all to this film. And I think like the two biggest movies that I remember seeing on midnight and having this buzz was this film and Independence Day. Those were just huge moments for me. But Batman 89, for so many reasons, and the reasons that all you guys have said thus far, all are the reasons why this movie is special, and one of the reasons why we are discussing, of course, this right now. Kyle.
I just want to add, you were talking about the big build and stuff. I've only seen one other movie do the year-long build like Batman did, and that was Jurassic Park, where they started with just the logo movie posters. But yeah, just that year-long build was just so amazing, and it was never done at the time. It was just something mind-blowing.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some fun stuff here, guys. I want to talk about your favorite moments and maybe action moments, scenes, whatever it is. What are your favorite parts of this film? I want to mention real quick. I'm going to go first real quick because as I was rewatching this, there's certain scenes that are really, really good about this movie. There's just so many moments. There's funny, there's humor, but one of the scenes that jumps out to me that I love rewatching, and it also ties into with my favorite line in the whole film, and that comes from the Joker himself, Jack Nicholson, is the scene where Bruce is trying to tell the truth about his secret identity at Vicky Vale's place. She's pissed off at him, and of course, Jack, aka the Joker, comes in, and there's that whole little thing going on, scene with Bruce Wayne and the Joker. And then it leads to the Joker basically shooting him, and saying the famous line, "Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?" That's not my favorite line, though. My favorite line is after he shoots him, he goes, "Never rub another man's rhubarb." Just love that scene, because you can use that line in a lot of moments in one's life. And so that not only is my favorite line, but that's actually my favorite scene in the movie. Great action movies, great action scenes, but that, whatever it is, I love that particular scene. Johnny, I'm going to go with you next here. Give me your favorite movie, I'm sorry, not favorite movie, favorite scene in the film or moment. What would that be?
My favorite line of this podcast is "puberty of the bat." Can we go back to that?
That's going to stick with him forever. You might as well just make it like your yearbook quote, William.
That's the sequel. That's the sequel.
I wish I had that on my yearbook.
Since we've been talking, I was actually on my phone. I've already ordered that as a T-shirt, so it's going to be here on Thursday.
Hashtag puberty of the bat.
No, my favorite scene was right up front. It's the very first time we see Batman. It's after the Eddie and Nick, who are the two muggers, they're up on the roof, American Express, they're going through that, and they're having this conversation, and just kind of out of focus a little bit in the deep background, you got the gray smoke, and you just see the bat descend out of nowhere. And I thought that was such a cool introduction to the character. It set the tone for everything we're going to see. A little bit of trivia for you guys. I actually just found this out not too long ago. That was not the original first appearance of Batman that was shot. They originally shot it just like the script says when you go back and read it, where there's gargoyles set up on a rooftop, and the script says, and then one of them moves. They actually shot that scene where Batman was one of the gargoyles and he moved, and they didn't use that. And so what that did give us, as cool as that would be, the first actual appearance of Batman is just him descending through the smoke ever so gracefully and elegantly. And I've got to drop a name, Kevin, because I found this out later in life. As a kid, when you're watching Batman, you just assume everything is Michael Keaton, and when you're 9 years old, you assume, oh yeah, the double descending in the bat suit 100 feet away from camera through the smoke, that's Michael Keaton, right? And then later in life you learn that no, it's a team of people who did this. And I've gotten to know Carl Newman over the last few months or so, making the oath and just connecting on a lot of the same Batman fan groups and such on social media. There's Carl Newman's picture. Yeah, William's holding up there. And, Carl is just a great guy. For those who don't know, he was Michael Keaton's movement double in Batman 89. He was not one of the stunt guys. That was Dave Lee and Sean. Carl was actually a movement double. He was a professional dancer and a professionally trained ballet dancer. And when they needed elegance and poise, they brought Carl Newman in to put the suit on. And that very first shot of Batman, when Carl just dips through the smoke and the cape just kind of slowly comes down, for me, that was worth the price of admission. I didn't even have to see the rest of the movie. That sold me.
William, can you hold that picture up again? I want to get a better shot of that. Let the people watching see that.
Sure. Let's make sure there's there we go, no glare.
Nice. He signed it for you there too. That's very cool. Nice. Very nice.
I got a chance. I didn't speak to him much, but in preparation for our fan film, I reached out to him on Instagram and got like one or two little tidbits on how I should try to move in the suit to make sure I captured the essence.
Smart.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow, Johnny, look at the homework your boy's doing here. I love that.
I know. And you'll see it in our behind the scenes special we got coming out. We've talked about that. So stay tuned.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Yeah, make sure you guys stay tuned to all the behind the scenes stuff for the Oath. You guys have gone way far above and beyond stuff that fans like to see. So that's really cool. William, since we got you up here right now,
Sure.
what were some of your favorite scenes or favorite scene or moment in the movie?
Well, before that, I just got to thank Kevin. You just stole. I was going to talk about the "Let's Get Nuts" scene, and you just stole that from me. So now I'm like, all right.
I mean, I was curious. I was going to actually start my segment with, "You want to get nuts?" And then you just said it, and I'm like, damn. Man,
you know, it's funny. Like I think you were talking about earlier about Bruce Wayne, and I like that scene because I can almost relate to Bruce Wayne just being a little crazy, and you were mentioning it, like he could be helping people, but he's just putting on a suit. And then you talk about us, and we're just fans, and you could have just done something simple and just be like, oh, let's go out to Petersburg and film something. But no, we did all this research, all this stuff, fight choreography. Like we're a little nuts as well for doing all this stuff.
Let's get nuts.
Yeah, right.
Don't rub my rhubarb.
Yeah. When it comes to moments, God, like how long do we have in this podcast? Because I could talk about so much.
Pick one.
Yeah, there's a scene I actually, if I think about it, there's a scene I always look up a lot more than everything else on YouTube, and it's the final sequence in the movie. And you're like, it's the Joker's being defeated, all that stuff's happening, and it's after Vicky Vale and Knox like do their thing, and it's Harvey then just or Commissioner Gordon just reading the letter, and from the moment Commissioner Gordon just screams, "He gave us a signal," and that thing just turns on in the crescendo of the music, and it's like da 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 da, and then like there's a little bit more Vicky Vale, and then whatever, and then it just starts. The limousine is driving away, and then the music, the theme starts as you're going up the building, and finally it's that shot of Batman with the wind, and it's actually Carl, I believe, is standing there. And it's just the cape flowing, and it's just the logo, the bat signal in the background, and it's just the music, and it's just the closing of that. It's the final shot of the movie, and it just sends me home. And it's just like, actually, it doesn't send me home; it sends me back to go buy a ticket to go watch it again. That's what it should do. It's
great.
It's an amazing shot, and there is no other shot in this movie that I YouTube as much. Like it's there. If
that's a good one.
That's what I would pick. It sends me home happy every single time, and it actually more than once. It's actually I'll be watching it on TV, and I'll be ready to do other stuff, and then that shot comes, and I'll be like, you know what? Let me just leave it running in the background again because it's so good. Like,
how many times have you practiced that shot with a fan? I'm just asking. I know.
Actually, there's a shot though. No, it's more like there was a shot that Heather was very adamant that I include in the movie, and it's this little twirl with the cape, and she made me watch that in Axis Chemicals. There's like a little twirl when Batman's coming into frame. There's just a little opening of the cape, and it's just a little whoosh. And she was a taskmaster too with that one. She made me practice that like 30 times before I got it right.
Chris, I didn't mean to steal your thunder there. I thought I picked a scene that not anyone else would pick. I thought everyone would pick like the action scenes and stuff like that. What else? What else is your favorite scene or moment in the movie?
I was obsessed. I guess maybe it was my Ninja Turtle phase. I love like the fact that they lived in a sewer. I know my parents are like, but I used to go around the house and put pipes up and create like a sewer that I could like climb through. It was just cardboard, but I love that tunnel system. And I love urban exploration. I've gone into abandoned buildings and like factories and stuff, and I love that just kind of spooky, like it's abandoned. I know they used an abandoned power plant as Axis Chemical Factory, and you can actually see some behind the scenes footage. And they I would say brightened it up a bit because it looks horrible with all the chemicals, but they had to go in and like actually restore it to like crappier condition after it was abandoned. I love the action sequence where he's holding the Joker's hand with the glove on and he's slipping, because there's always been a debate in my mind. Was he actually trying to save Jack Napier, or was he kind of smirking like, I'm going to give it a little effort, but if you fall, I'm not really that upset about it. I noticed in the comments people were debating that for that little like 5-minute scene. But there's so much in that Axis Chemical scene. You got Lieutenant Eckhart who's like, shoot to kill. And then whoever touches him will answer to me. So you got the different, you got the fact that there's some corruption showing. You got Napier taking out Lieutenant Eckhart. You got Commissioner Gordon held hostage when Batman. I mean, there's just so much going on in that scene. The creation of the Joker is like a 3-minute action scene, and also the famous fist to the nose, which was an inspiration for a very popular scene in The Oath. There's just so much in that like 3-minute scene where basically Napier's set up, right? He says, "Watch yourselves, boys." He knows he got set up by Grissom. So much in that 3-minute sequence, but it's a great action sequence. You got the smoke, you got Batman getting out of there with the little smoke pellet, just so much going on. And I watched that scene. I've seen that scene probably 300 times in my life.
That's a great scene. Good pick. Kyle, what is your favorite scene in the film? And then I'm going to ask you your favorite quote.
I got to agree with Johnny as the opening is just because it sets everything so perfectly for the rest of this film. But I'm also going to go with when he rescues Vicky from the Joker in the art museum. When he comes crashing through the skylight and then points the thing at the Joker, and it turns out it's the cable to get away, and we see the Batmobile and everything like that. That's the epitome of Batman in action, I think, there, and just coming to rescue Vicky. It's a great moment, but for me, number one is still that opening sequence. What are you? I am Batman. I mean, it just that without that, you don't get the same tone to this movie. And it was that moment that reached out to all the comic book Batman fans too, that back alley, the smoke, him working in the darkness. And I think it just pulled everybody in. So yeah.
Kyle, if I can add to that, how about the Prince soundtrack that also plays a little bit when he's in the art museum, right? You get the first taste, I believe, of some of the Prince music.
Party Time, right? I think that's the song.
Party Man,
right?
Party Man.
It's more
either, and of course they're destroying all the art, and he stops the one that has all like the death. And
he prevents Bob from cutting. Yeah, kind of like that one, wasn't it? With like what was it? Some kind of demon on it. That was great.
All right, speed round, guys. Starting with you, Kyle. Your favorite line in the film?
That's a tough one.
Johnny, you're next.
I gotta say, Wing Freak terrorizes. Wait till they get a load of me. That just set it for the Joker right there. It just set the tone completely right there.
Johnny?
We got enough to think about in this city without worrying about ghosts and goblins.
Well said. Will, favorite line?
That you sugar bumps. Yeah, it's me. Sugar bumps.
Chris, favorite line?
You weigh a little more than 108.
Never say that.
Well said. Well said. All right, guys. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about the cast. We got some stuff we got to touch on here. All right, guys. Tim Burton, director. We knew a little bit about him. And I think as fans, we knew that he was going to be able to pull this off. He had a certain look, had a certain feel, and we were excited about this director. And then, of course, he went on to do a lot more. And but we've got Michael Keaton, who, when first mentioned, we were like, "What, Mr. Mom? What are you talking about?" Then, of course, Jack, Mr. Courtside Seats the Lakers, Jack Nicholson. I think we all knew that this was the perfect choice for the Joker. And then, of course, we got Kim Basinger as Vicky Vale. And we got another plethora of great cast, guys. And so let's go ahead and let's talk about the cast. Let's start with you, Johnny. Your thoughts on, the cast in general, and when you remember hearing about who was who.
Yeah, I mean, I'd seen Beetlejuice, and again, I was like 8 or 9, 8 maybe when I saw Beetlejuice. And if somebody said, "Hey, this is going to be the guy that plays Batman, it's the same guy that plays Beetlejuice," I would say, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." Like, he's an actor. I'm sure he can pull off both. But, I wasn't really tuned in because how young I was. I wasn't really tuned into how much hate Michael Keaton was actually getting because I saw Beetlejuice and I thought, sure, the guy could probably pull it off. Why not? And I didn't know what to expect. So I kind of went into it at 9 years old with a very open mind. The rest of the cast, I mean, what can you say? It was just flawless. I mean, Jack did steal the show. He was the absolute perfect choice for the Joker. He is my personal all-time favorite Joker by far. And then the other thing, I'll keep it short. The other thing I just wanted to mention is, guys, keep in mind, Tim Burton, he was 29, I think, when he directed this movie. And he's directing guys like Jack Palance, who was around, for decades. And he's directing Jack Nicholson. And I look at it now, again, I'm not comparing myself to Tim Burton. That's not my point. But when you look at, a 29-year-old young director who's able to, get in the ring with Jack Palance and Jack Nicholson and, Michael Gough and Billy Dee and some of these amazing casts that we're seeing here, that had to take a lot of cojones from Tim Burton to be able to summon up the confidence from somewhere and really run with that. And also, I think it probably took some cojones on the part of the folks who hired him at Warner Brothers and had the faith in him after Pee-wee and after Beetlejuice and said, you know what, this late 20-something young man is the exact person we need at the helm of the ship to come in and direct people like Jack Palance. But that's amazing to me, is just how young Burton was when he directed this. It's pretty amazing.
Chris, your thoughts
Huge
on the
crush
cast?
on her.
Oh gosh, yeah. Kim. What about you, Chris? What are your thoughts on the cast?
I think I was so young when Beetlejuice first came out. I don't know if my parents will let me watch it yet. So I think I just watched it probably about the same year I watched Batman. And I kind of shared Johnny's thoughts. Like I knew who Jack Nicholson was, but I didn't know who Tim Burton was. I just cared about the content of the movie. I didn't really care that much. I guess for me, I'm looking at it in hindsight, but I think for me, I guess I never really questioned anybody's performance. I'm like Johnny. I didn't know that there was that much hate toward Keaton being cast. I think when I saw that poster, you showed a picture of Batman next to the Batmobile. I have that on a folder I used, I think, in like grade school. It's still in great condition. I think for me, I was just so enamored with the look of it. And I think what stood out for me, and now I credit it with the director, when you get older, it was just that atmosphere we've been talking about. And I think it was knocked out of the park. And whatever fears there were about the cast, so to speak, I think were gone immediately. I think I read it. The movie made like $400 million worldwide on a budget of like 40. So it was by far a success. So I look back on it and I kind of
$35 million budget made over 400 million. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Enough said, right?
William, what about you? Thoughts on the cast?
First movie I ever saw Michael Keaton in was the Batman movie. So I've compared every single thing he's ever done after. It's funny. I got introduced to Michael Keaton as this serious predator of the night. So everything that I've ever seen Michael Keaton after the fact is compared to this. So think about it the other way. When I went back and I saw Multiplicity, I'm like, why is Batman doing this? Batman should not be doing this. So it was a little different. A little bit like Chris, to me, when I was watching it, the best compliment I can give every single person in this cast is that I didn't think about, them as a cast. They inhabited the role and they were the characters. And the best compliment I can give him is I never questioned, should Michael Keaton be Batman? To me, it was perfect because also I was not the biggest kid growing up. So I was like, all right, a guy who's like an average height and average build. I'm actually the same height as Michael Keaton was in 89 and 92. So, you put on a suit that makes you look bigger and stronger and you would never question it. And I always viewed the Batsuit, and that's one of the reasons why I love this Batsuit and I bought this Batsuit. This is an armor. This is kind of like changing your identity the same way that Clark wears glasses, takes him off to become Superman. Like I was like, it's not just a suit, it's a whole nother identity. As far as Jack Nicholson goes, like I had no reason to question it. They're all great, every single one of them. Bob the Goon. I personally love Alexander Knox because when I was growing up, I didn't think of myself as the imposing alpha male. I was like, I can relate to this guy. He's trying to get the girl. He's not quite going to get her, but there's no reason why he couldn't if he tried a little harder. It's all great. Props to whoever, I guess Tim Burton had final say, casting Billy Dee. I think one of the unfortunate elements of this era Batman is that we never got to see the evolution of what his Two-Face would have been like, because I think that would have been really outstanding, like if you really gave him a chance.
Good point.
Yeah.
Kyle, your thoughts on the cast? Can we give some love to Bob the Goon too?
Here's the thing, Kevin. Obviously, you and I are the only ones who are of age that can actually talk about why there was such controversy about Michael Keaton, because we were in the moment and we knew Michael Keaton before Batman. We all saw Michael Keaton as this comedic actor. He had done these phenomenal comedies. He had done Beetlejuice. It's Batman. What are you talking about? Like you said, Kevin, it's Mr. Mom, or it's Gung Ho, or it's Night Shift with Michael Keaton. It's the Dream Team. All of these things we're used to Michael Keaton doing comedy. But what made this so brilliant, and I think it was great casting, was when you cast Jack Nicholson, everybody kind of gets lost in that Nicholson shadow. And Nicholson is so phenomenal in this movie. My favorite, all-time favorite Jack performance, and that's saying something. Jack has a lot of great performances, but it's spectacular. You bring in Kim Basinger, who at the time is one of the most beautiful women in the world. And so Michael Keaton gets a little bit shadowed out. And I mean, I think it took a few years before people fully appreciated his performance in this film. And I think, for me, he probably still to this day has the best balance of Batman and Bruce Wayne as far as both characters go. But the other great thing was just so many amazing character actors. And of course, you have the great Jack Palance, you got Tracy Walter, Bob the Goon, Pat Hingle, all of these great characters. But there's two people who, for me, stand out in that. Robert Wuhl is Alexander Knox. Wuhl was probably at the apex of his career at this point, but it worked out so well for him because they were trying to keep the secrecy of Batman and everything like that. Robert Wuhl was kind of the spokesperson for this movie in a lot of like commercials and media marketing and things like that, because they put everything through the Alexander Knox perspective. I remember there was a special that came out where he was the host of it, talking about the making of this film. But to me too, we would be remiss if we did not mention Michael Gough as Alfred, because he will be, until the day I die, the true live action version of Alfred. Just every scene he is in is heartwarming. I love the back and forth between him and Keaton as Bruce Wayne. And I even love the conversations he has with Vicky Vale in the films as he's trying to help her understand Bruce, because he doesn't want to see Bruce be alone. Just great cast all the way around. And one of the most iconic performances in film history from Jack Nicholson. Just, you can't say anything bad about any of the casting in this film.
Yes, Johnny.
Kevin, can I give a quick shout out to Bob the Goon real quick? Like, the company, in defense of Bob the Goon, that'll be the name of my thesis. The company Toy Biz made 3 action figures for Batman '89, and it was Batman, the Joker, and Bob the Goon. Those are the only 3 action figures they made. And
I remember that.
Yeah, and I think you push a button on Bob's back and he kicks, I think was his play feature. But like, Bob the Goon does not get enough love. And after this podcast is over,
oh man, he got taken out like a chump by the Joker too, man.
He made it all the way to the end of the movie. He made it to the end.
I'm gonna go buy a Bob the Goon t-shirt at the end of this.
All right, well said, guys. I can't say anything more that you guys haven't said. The cast is fantastic. And regarding reviews, this movie has been well reviewed by everyone. But I did want to mention, I want to thank you for bringing finding this information. Siskel and Ebert, who didn't watch it way back in the day, watched their show, and they were the most famous movie reviewers of all time. And Roger Ebert said he was highly impressed with the production design, but claimed Batman is a triumph of design over story, style over substance, a great-looking movie, but with a plot you can't care much about. He also called the film a depressing experience. However, his reviewing partner, Gene Siskel, disagreed. He said, describing the film as having a refreshingly adult approach with performances, direction, and set design that draws you into a psychological world. So, thought that was pretty cool. But guys, let's talk about one of the coolest things came from this film. And we see it about about an hour and 7 minutes in. We've got the Batmobile. Johnny, let's start with you. There's always a discussion when it comes to all the Batmans. What's the best Batmobile? What is your take on Batman '89 Batmobile?
Well, there's really no discussion, Kevin. That's just something people say. This is the discussion right there, is that car. It's not been surpassed. I don't think it's come close to being surpassed by anything. And if I had to name a second favorite shot in the movie or scene in the movie, it's this one. They run out of the museum, get in the car, what car? And then the camera just, boom, there it is. And as a kid, seeing that, even in the theater, I mentioned before, it was a packed house. When I saw it for the first time, you guys probably had the same experience. Those of you who saw it in the theater, it was just applause. It was an eruption of applause because it was such a perfect setup to show off that car. And it's gorgeous. Anton Furst and the team behind that who made this beautiful machine, it still stands up today, I think, is the best Batmobile ever. I don't even know what's number 2.
What about you, Chris? What are your thoughts on this Batmobile? Where does it stand with all the Batmobiles out there?
Oh my God. I have like 7, like I said, I have like at least 3 die casts, micro machines. The original, it was actually, the funny thing is the toy was actually a convertible, so you could stick the figure in there because his head would stick up. You couldn't have it may have had the little plate over, but I think I lost it. But anyway, it actually looks kind of cool as a convertible, but I just absolutely love it. And I remember the coolest feature is when it's coming at him and he had this little thing in his hand. He's like, stop. And it like stops right before it takes him out. And Vicky Vale like screams. And I was like, oh my God, it's voice activated. It has a little thing that shoots around the pole to make it take turns, instantly. And the Joker's cars spin out. I thought they did such a cool job of making it look like really badass. But I mean, even if that thing drove down the street today, it's aged so well, and everything else to me just looks clunky. Like even the tumbler was kind of cool, but like it just, I don't know. It's like Batman cars now. It's like they almost look a little, or even the, God, what was it? Is it the Batwing? All of a sudden my mind's going blank, but the way that they incorporated, there's like the prongs from Batman's uniform are actually on the Batmobile. Like if you look at it from the top, it's got the lower back end. If it's facing vertically, has the outline of like the logo here. And it's just little touches like that. I mean, I don't know who came up with that, but whoever did that is absolutely iconic.
Will, your thoughts on the Batmobile and the Batwing, if you want to throw that in too.
My thoughts on the Batmobile is that I own like 6 different versions of this car and different toys and stuff. There is no second. There is no, first place is this car, second place is this car, and then third place is this car in 92. It's this car. This is the Batmobile that everybody's been chasing and trying to recreate ever since. It's very physical for me. It's very guttural because I owned this car as a kid, and I specifically had, I know which car that Chris is talking about. The version that I had was based on Returns, which had the little button up top that when like the 2 sides split up and it became just this bullet, and it would just like, I'm like, holy cow. Like, because if we're talking about this car, we should really talk about both of its appearances. The armor feature was, that was the only thing that I was always like, that's slightly sci-fi. I remember that's the only thing in these movies where I was ever like, what's with the armor? That's kind of odd. But just, it's a jet engine with some wheels in it. I'm like, that thing looks like it'll like, Batman doesn't need a machine gun. He can just run somebody over and that's it. Game over. Like this, it's the aesthetic of that vehicle is truly and utterly amazing. And as we're talking, I think it was like 8 days ago, someone posted that one of these original cars is being auctioned off for like 15 million. I just need 37 other friends right now to help me get it. That's all.
That's awesome.
And yeah. And if we're talking about the Batwing as well, talk about, if you ask me for what my second or third favorite shot is in the movie, completely unnecessary, utterly gratuitous. But he just goes up to the moon and it's like, here's this logo. Who is that for? It's not for him. Maybe it's for him because he's crazy. It's not for the people in Gotham City. They can't see any of that.
That's for us, baby. That is for us.
That's for us. And I have so many strong emotions, and all of them good about like this Batwing, like the little grapple taking the balloons and Jack Nicholson screaming, "He stole my balloons!" Why didn't anybody tell me he had one of those things? Like everything about this thing, I love it as much as I question it, because I remember I didn't like until this movie, Batman hadn't used a gun until from 1939 when he had a pistol in his holster in those first like 4 or 5 issues. And all of a sudden I remember thinking, I'm watching this movie and I think this might actually be the moment my father just finally quit and just walked out. When he all of a sudden pulls out missiles, machine guns, and I'm like, did he just try to murder a human being with like heavy artillery? I'm like, and then it gets taken out by one very, very big 6-shooter. And everything about this thing just makes me like, this is my favorite Batwing of all time. There's been a couple. The one from the animated show is almost a recreation of this one. And there's been like Batman Forever had something that was very toyetic. It's the word that they've used a lot of the times when it comes to that kind of stuff. But
the Batwing that I have a picture of here, I also got a little inset picture with Adam Savage here, and he's looking at one of the restored original versions of it there that was used for the film. And I don't know what that's going for, but Kyle, your thoughts on the Batmobile and throwing the Batwing too?
This is the ultimate Batmobile. There's no question. It was the inspiration they used for the animated series as well. But when I think the Batmobile, this is what I always come to. The Batwing is an amazing design. Kevin, can I drop a little bit of just Batmobile technical knowledge just here real quick?
Sure.
So you guys have been talking about all the different looks of the Batmobile. Here's the lowdown on the Batmobile. The Batmobile was built on the chassis of a Chevy Impala and incorporated the engine of an Impala, the taillights of a Ferrari, the fuel caps of a London bus, and the jet engine parts from a Harrier jump jet. The sliding cockpit was also inspired by that of a Harrier with the slim windows of a gun emplacement. Art director Terry Ackland Snow added the headlights of a Honda Civic to the vehicle after noticing them on his wife's car. Needless to say, they had one little problem when they built the Batmobile. Upon seeing the initial life-size polystyrene model of the Batmobile, Tim Burton turned to the art director, Terry Ackland Snow, and said, "Great, where's the door?" The team just suddenly realized they had a big problem. They didn't have any doors, and inspired by the cockpit of the Harrier jump jet, Terry came up with the idea of the sliding cockpit. So, when you guys talk about all the aesthetic, it's all there, and you guys all noticed it, a part of it each way. So...
I love this Batmobile as well. It is one of the most classic designs. I remember the original from the 60s, and that was my favorite for, like one of my favorite movie cars of all time until Kit came out, and then Kit and the A-Team van were up there as well. But this Batmobile is one of the most iconic. So yeah. Okay, guys, I want to get your thoughts.
Hold on, Kevin. Before we move on, before we move on, real quick. We could talk about this thing all day, but I just wanted to plug. If nobody's ever saw,
we can't do that though.
There's a documentary though. It's official from actual Warner Brothers. If nobody's seen it, just look up Batmobile and everything you ever wanted to know about this car is in there. It's amazing. Like, I love this car so much. If I could I wouldn't even want to own it because I'd be afraid of what would happen to it. I could talk about this car all day.
It's beautiful. It is one of the most iconic vehicles of all time. It's just, and it was highlighted really, really well. They made us wait for it, which I thought was great. And the intro shot of it when they're running out of the museum, Johnny, is just fantastic. I love that. Get excited when that museum scene comes out. I'm like, oh, Batmobile's coming up. Batmobile's coming up. So yeah. I want to get you guys' quick thoughts, though. One huge thing about this movie was the soundtrack. Original songs done by Prince, and of course, Danny Elfman did the soundtrack. I'm just going to say really briefly, this is Danny Elfman's, I think, best work ever. This kind of defined him. When he started doing other movies later on, I became less of a fan of his stuff when it came to doing Tim Burton films and a bunch of others. Just because, honestly, this sounds a little bit harsh, but I felt like he started plagiarizing himself. Just stuff started sounding too much. But this particular soundtrack, as well as Beetlejuice and a few others, this is my favorite work of his. If there's one thing that I'm not a huge fan of in this film is, I'm sorry, I'm a huge Prince fan, but Bat Dance video still makes me cringe. Not a fan of that song as well. Not a fan of some of the songs in this. To me, this is one of Prince's low points. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I know this song hit #1 and it was huge and blah, blah, blah. And we were just eating up everything. But I'm just going to say, not a fan of Prince in this movie at all. Johnny, your thoughts on the soundtrack?
This conversation's over. I'm going to leave the podcast now. No, I think it worked because it gave us a different dimension to the movie. You know, and in fact, I'll take it a step further. I don't think enough movies have done this where they give you kind of the popular, you know, Warner Brothers artist at the time for the pop soundtrack, but then also have that banging score. I don't even know if another movie's ever done that, and outside of just one song or something. But I don't know. To me, it kind of made Gotham that much more of a real world, because you literally have characters in the movie dancing, you know, to Prince songs. And even if it wasn't Prince, if it was just some contemporary artist that you have in there, you know, the movie opens, you know, when the city is that first shot of like Gotham Square, you know, where it's panning across to get to the theater to show the family coming out before they get mugged. You know, there's pop music playing, you know, underneath all the hoods and the hoodlums and, you know, the unsavory characters hanging out at the theater. And to me, having something in this movie besides just, you know, the brass and the score and the trombones and the typical cinematic score, it actually added a different dimension for me that made me appreciate the score when it did kick in even that much more, because it was so different from the pop music.
Gotcha. What about you, Chris? What's your thoughts on the soundtrack?
To this day, I still, whenever I see a superhero come on, I always get that dun, 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 dun. Like that's just like, yeah, that's like, I mean, it's just implanted in my head forever. It's like that's just burned in, you know. And then the bat signal shot. I mean, it just in the gong, right? By the way, we have that effect in the Oath. You know, it's like that just when it led into that scene of Gotham that was painted. You know, like we have one of those in the Oath as well. It's just everything just fits so well. I can't imagine. I'd love to see Batman filmed without the soundtrack, because I can't imagine the movie without the music. Like in Axis Chemical, when they come out and they're about to get in the shootout, it's like do 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 do. Like every damn point of that soundtrack fits so well. I can't imagine like watching them film it and like that not happening. Like, all right, guys, action, and they just creep out. It's just I can't imagine that. Like I can only associate Batman with the Elfman soundtrack. And I agree. I don't think those songs were Prince's best in the world, but it was something about you're kind of bringing Gotham home. Like when you played that at home, of course we all had cassettes. I don't know where CDs became big, I think in the early 90s. I think if your car had a CD player in the 89, you were pimping it, right? So I think most cars still had cassettes. Really splurged. So I think my dad's 91 Eclipse had a CD player and people thought, wow, that's fancy. But anyway, like, you know, when you played it at home, it's like you were kind of continuing. You could see the scenes in your head, you know, Jack Nicholson dancing on the float. You know, so I think for me, even though it might not have been Prince's best songs ever, I just think being able to like have that experience at home made you feel like, you know, hey, Gotham's real. Like they've got real artists singing there or something. I don't know. As a kid, that's how I thought it was. Gotcha.
What about you, William? What's your thoughts on the soundtrack?
I'll throw it from a slightly different angle. Like, first of all, the score is I actually think I actually enjoy the Christopher Nolan score. At least I don't remember the name of the track, but whatever that like that Batman theme score. I actually enjoy that a lot. It's one of my favorites. But there's no beating, you know. And Chris just did it, so I'm not going to try to imitate do the beat for beat as well as he did. That is what Batman sounds like, even more iconically than the animated series, which that intro from that animated series is beautiful. But this beats it by maybe a point, because that is all like Kyle mentioned earlier, derived from this. This is that. As far as the Prince stuff goes, I'll tell you what, Prince, at least in my neck of the woods in Puerto Rico, was not big. So for me, when I was listening to like Jack Napier dance in the museum or him dancing in the float, that wasn't Prince music. That was Joker music. I'd never even seen the music video. And this is totally real. I never saw the music videos until I bought Batman on Blu-ray, the collector's edition. And I'm just going and surfing through all the behind the scenes, all the cool stuff. And all of a sudden it says right there on the listing of the extra features, it's Bat Dance music video. And I'm just like, what is this? I am like when did this come out? I am 21, 22 years old. I've grown up with this movie. I had the puberty of the Bat, and I had never encountered this music video in my life. I knew this as the music Joker danced to Hubba 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 who do you trust? Like that's what my vision of is when I hear this music.
Gotcha.
So all of a sudden, I see Prince come out in a half Party City Batman costume, half Party City Joker, just like, you know, if I had seen this as a kid and I knew who Prince was, this would have turned me off because I would have been like, how dare you cheapen this by trying to do something. Yeah, like that's how I feel about it.
The video is cringeworthy for me, but I like it
and
as
even
background music.
Even Party Man, because I've seen them. Because I was like, all right, does Party Man have a music video? I went back and I saw that, and I'm like, there's like some mermaid in a club, and something's happening, and I'm just like, can I just see Jack Napier just like ruin art? Like that's so much better. Just give me that for 5 minutes. I'll be happy with that.
Your thoughts on the soundtrack? It's funny.
Okay, so as far as the soundtrack goes, this is not one of Prince's best albums anywhere near that. However, Kevin, this is much like Guardians of the Galaxy, which we just talked about recently on True Believers, where the music makes the scene stand out. And whenever I think of the Batman soundtrack, I always go back to, gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence and Party Man kicks in, and you're just taken right. Anytime I hear Party Man, I'm taken into the scene in the art museum. And that's where music and movie come together and make that memorable moment. And I think that's where the soundtrack worked as far as the Prince score, Prince side of it. That was the song that stood out from that album. That was the song that I think everybody remembers from the movie as far as the Prince side of it goes. The rest of the music, honestly, like I said, not Prince's best work and not really that memorable. The score, obviously, by Danny Elfman. Kevin, I agree with you. It is the apex for Danny Elfman. And it stuck with everybody because they used a variation of it in the Batman animated series, and that was in the opening. And so it just kicks in. And I think even there are a lot of people, older Batman fans, who said, no, you will never replace the 60s Batman for me with that music. And I think this does. I think the score, the Batman theme by Danny Elfman, is the ultimate Batman song. It's when you hear it, you automatically think of Batman. And I think when you take those two pieces, that's what makes these, again, the music and the movie coming together to create these absolutely vivid memories from the film. You've got it in one of the Prince items, and you've got it in the Batman theme by Danny Elfman.
Well said. Well said. Yes, Johnny.
I'll make it real quick. I only talked about Prince. I didn't talk about Elfman. I think the Batman theme from '89 is the single greatest superhero music ever written for any film ever, even better than Superman 78. And I don't think anything
that's close.
I don't think anything
close, but I
don't think anything since then has even touched it. I don't think the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
there's nothing for Marvel.
They've not even come close to touching the '89 theme. And I'm also digging, by the way, I'm really digging the Danny Elfman music on Wednesday on Netflix.
That's actually been good.
Yeah,
I'll give you that. That's been good.
Good point. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here because we're going to come back with some trivia, and we're going to close out the show with more couch potato theater discussing Batman 1989. We'll be right back. Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blooded Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our Fandom flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek and the Orville Show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom. All right, welcome back to Couch Potato Theater. We are discussing Batman 1989 with The Oath, a Batman fan film, cast and director here. Kyle, you've got us some cool trivia for Batman 1989.
Yeah, I dove into the Bat computer at the Bat Cave and found some interesting pieces of trivia. First and foremost, I think this is one of the more famous stories from Batman, but Jack Nicholson received a percentage of the gross on the film, and due to its massive box office take, he took home around $60 million. When adjusting for inflation, this equals roughly $143,359,000.
Okay, Johnny, I think this is important for one particular reason. I think when A-listers found out about this, they started asking for back-end points and maybe a salary. This was huge.
Oh yeah, I mean how do you touch that? He even gets he got a slice of the merch too, right? All those toys and T-shirts and pajamas and socks that we're all buying. Jack's getting all that, but Jack had the inside scoop on how big this was going to be, and that's pretty awesome because you get somebody that enthused about it, and you know how well the movie's going to do. That's like, it's contagious. That catches on to other people, and next thing you know, you got a big hit.
Well, Jack taking a page from that Harrison Ford paycheck book. But speaking of Jack, is an excitement for this film. He loved his performance in this film so much that at one point he was watching the film once a week at his house.
Just like me.
I got a little bit of alternate casting news here as well. Don Johnson, Dale Midkiff, and William Peterson were considered for Harvey Dent. Obviously, Billy Dee Williams took the role with the expectation he would be brought back to play Two-Face, and reportedly even had a contract clause added reserving the role for him. During the casting of Batman Forever, Warner Brothers decided they preferred Tommy Lee Jones and bought out Williams' contract. However, Williams did come back to voice the character in the Lego Batman movie in 2017. So very interesting, and would have been a totally different movie with this. Robin Williams was offered the role of the Joker when Jack Nicholson hesitated. He had even accepted the role when producers approached Nicholson again and told him Williams would take the part if he did not. Nicholson took the role and Williams was released. Williams resented being used as bait and not only refused to play the Riddler in Batman Forever, but also refused to be involved in any Warner Brothers production until the studio apologized to him.
Did he ever get that apology? That's what I'm wondering about.
I don't think he did, because I don't think he did any Warner Brothers projects after that. Kevin, this one is for you. Domestically, it was the highest grossing movie of 1989 worldwide. It came in second to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Oh, man, that was a good summer. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah.
So there's some great Jack Nicholson stories here. I got one more for you. Michael Keaton stated the crew would tape basketball games for Jack Nicholson as he would come in and watch them the next day while his makeup was added. One day, when by his own admission, Jack was so frustrated that no game was on, he turned on the only sport available on the 4 TV channels in the UK at the time, the 1989 BDO World's Darts Championship. The next day, as he passed Michael on the set, he looked at him and asked, "How about that dart game?" To which both he and Michael burst out laughing.
That's great. You had one that you had mentioned, and I think this is very interesting because the course of action movies were changing. You have something about what Sylvester Stallone said about this film.
Yeah. Sylvester Stallone has cited that this film as what led to the decline of muscle-bound action stars from the 1980s and a change in how action films were made. In an interview, he said it was the beginning of a new era. The visuals took over. The special effects became more important than the single person. I wish I had thought of the Velcro muscles myself. I didn't have to go to the gym all those years, all those hours wedded to the iron game, as we call it.
I think also John McClane had a little help in that as well. He was the everyday guy as well that became an action hero.
One other thing real quick, just as far as possible casting things, Mel Gibson was the first choice for Bruce Wayne, but he had turned it down because he was already committed to Lethal Weapon 2.
Wow. That would have been interesting. Okay, Kyle, I'm going to start with you real quick. Name one of your favorite Batman merchandise that you had from Batman '89. What was it?
Oh, man. The Batmobile. The Batmobile toy was just incredible, and I wish I still had mine. They you should have it in the picture too. The Nintendo game that was actually one of the better movie-based video games at the time as well.
Johnny, I might have a feeling of what yours is. What is your favorite? There it is. Describe to the listeners what you are holding in your hand.
The listeners should just go ahead and go to YouTube because the picture is worth 1,000 words. It's the cereal. I mean, it's everything for me. The cereal is just what was within reach, but the cereal tasted terrible. Like it was awful. But
it tastes better now that it's aged some.
I was so addicted to Batman that it just had that logo, and I wanted box after box after box, and it was terrible. And by the way, Kevin, I know how your brain works. No, I am not going to open that 33-year-old box of cereal and eat it on the air. I know. Before you even asked.
That was my next question.
I know.
but the truth of the matter is, how many bad cereals did we all eat as kids because of the branding on it?
It was all the same cereal. They were just cut into different shapes. It was like Rambo cereal and RoboCop cereal.
That is so funny. That's so funny. Chris, what about you? What was your one favorite Batman 89 toy?
So you have one of them. You can see the little Batmobile with the logo on the top of it. That was the Ertl diecast. That was like the official model. So the Joker van was actually this crappy little metal. It was like pink with like stickers on it. But the Batmobile is actually really well done with the lights painted and stuff. So I still have that somewhere. What was I going to say? Oh man. Yeah, everybody's saying the Batmobile, and I still have that. But I would say also the arcade game I spent a lot of time playing as well. And I don't know if you know this, but a little trivia, Jack Nicholson had to approve of every aspect of that arcade game before they could release it. I want to say it was maybe a Data East release around there, but there was an arcade game, and I remember dropping quite a few quarters into that with my dad and stuff. I think it was at Mount Tatia. But anyway, so I'd say the video games and also the Batmobile.
What about you, William? What was your one favorite Batman 89 toy or merch?
No, I can't just give you one. There's two.
I gotta get one. Gotta get one. Maybe two.
You got them. You got them both right there in the picture. You got on the left. You got the little Batman action figure. I can't remember the company that made them, but the one with the little rope that came from the belt extended.
Oh yeah.
And it had like maybe 2 inches of rope, so it was completely and utterly useless to you. But nice. Yeah, it's that action figure. And then like Chris just mentioned it, that little Batman diecast. I actually have two of them right now. I have my original one, and it's in the living room right now. It's next to my kitchen table. I've actually given it a paint job, because it's so beat up, so old, so the paint's gone. So I basically just repainted it by myself. The wings on the back are bent inwards because I used to create traffic jams, and I would just, because it was diecast, I would throw that thing up and down, left and right. Like that thing could take a beating. So I actually went and I have a second one of those, mint in package. It's actually sitting over there somewhere. So yeah,
Kyle,
the fact that I still have one.
What did you want to add?
I just wanted to add that for all of these things that we've all said, we know we would all truthfully trade them all in if we could get a working life-size action Batman grappling hook gun.
I mean, I have one.
We used it in the movie.
What was that, Johnny?
The spear gun. Are you talking about the spear gun or the thing that shoots sideways?
No, the spear gun. The spear gun. You know, the classic Batman grappling hook, like similar to what they used in the animated series. We would all kill for a working one that we could all just try to break our bodies with because we couldn't use it properly.
I remember getting the that booklet, the movie booklet thing. I think you see it over there on the left in the picture. And then I love the trading cards. I was a huge fan of trading cards. I collected Star Wars trading cards. And I love the Batman trading cards, and I had those for like the longest time. And I think they got damaged or something, but I always loved the design of the cards. So I was definitely a huge fan of those. Okay, guys, I want to ask you, when it comes to the sequels in the 90s, which one was your favorite? And which one was your least favorite? Real quick, Johnny.
I'll keep it simple and easy. I was 12 years old when Batman Returns came out, so I ate it up. I loved it. I had all the same merch behind the scenes, loved it. Saw the movie, loved it. I watch it now as an adult. I don't love it as much as I did when I was 12 years old. And then the other two, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. I saw each of those movies one time in the movie theater, and I've not seen either one of them since.
William, what is your favorite and least favorite of the 90s Batmans?
Oh, you got them in order right now. Actually, I mean, like I said, I love Returns. A little tidbit, actually, like the suit I own, if some eagle-eyed observers might notice, is technically it's got the 92 logo on it. It's got a little bit like a slimmer cowl. It fits him a little better. So I don't know. And Michelle Pfeiffer in that Catwoman suit, like, good grief, come on. Yeah, no.
Chris, what about you?
Yeah,
I like Returns, and a little trivia for Returns. If you look on YouTube, there's a scene where she whips the whip and takes off the heads of the mannequins. She did that in one take, and everybody goes nuts after she does it. So it's a cool behind-the-scenes video to watch. But yeah, these are in the same order. I will say, I did appreciate. I thought the acting skills were okay in the other sequels in there as well, but they just didn't have the same effect. It kind of went, even though it was serious, they went kind of campy again. And I just never took Batman seriously again until Christopher Nolan took the helm. So I think Returns is really kind of the end of the greatness until we got Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises.
Kyle, kind of curious what your answer is, because we've actually done a podcast on Batman Returns. On Batman Forever. That's what I meant to say.
Okay, real quick.
We did that,
to talk about Chris's take real quick of Michelle Pfeiffer with the whip. Let's not forget, Kevin, she was trained by a good friend of the networks for that.
Yes, Anthony DeLongis, who is a master at the whip, and he calls it the supersonic flexible blade. I've actually had some classes with him, and he was also helped Harrison Ford in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Oh, wow. And he also played, what was it, Blade in the
Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, Masters of the Universe as well. So yeah, he was on set and taught Michelle Pfeiffer how to use the whip.
Well, he did a great job.
As much as, you know, we did a podcast about Batman Forever, and as much as I love Chase Meridian, Nicole Kidman, as far as the overall movie, I got to say it's Batman Returns probably ranks as the highest of these three. Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman is one of the best performances of that section of the Bat universe. Michael Keaton is still the Batman for that. Batman and Robin just destroyed the franchise beyond recognition and forever did damage to it, and it took Christopher Nolan going in a totally different direction. But yeah, I would go back basically how they're here: Batman Returns, then Batman Forever, then Batman and Robin. Batman Forever is a little bit fun. It doesn't go full on camp, but by the time we hit Batman and Robin, it's painful.
I'm going to say something that's very unpopular, but I'm actually a fan of Batman Forever over Batman Returns, and here's why. Batman Returns, for me, is too dark, and Batman is barely in the freaking film. I think that Batman got outshined, and I think that is a problem for me personally. I love the fact that we had Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer as the villains in there, but I think it was too much about Danny DeVito, and I was not a fan of that. I wanted to see more of Batman and Bruce Wayne kind of getting a little more front and center and dealing with his demons a little bit more. And I felt that he totally got outshined in that. And I don't think that was the right move to do. I love Batman Forever because it's campy. It's over the top. I love Val Kilmer personally. And I thought it was a good balance of all the villains in there as well. And everyone was kind of at the top of their game. And, Batman and Robin was horrible. Not a fan of that. But for me, Batman Forever, I find more watchable than Batman Returns. Just my opinion there. So, yes, Jay.
Quick little thing about this. Batman Forever, believe it or not, is actually the very first Batman movie I ever saw in theaters, not Batman Returns. And Batman Forever is the first Batman movie I ever sat through all the way with my dad. He was like, this one I understand, this one I like.
Yeah. So guys, obviously we had the Nolan films, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises, and then we have recently the Batman as well. And I do want to mention all of the actors that have played Batman in the current day. Obviously we have Adam West way back to the classic 60s, but real quick, who is your favorite Batman of all time? Johnny, start with you.
It's Michael Keaton, hands down. I've actually people will throw stuff at me. I have not seen the new one, the Pattinson movie. I've been busy doing other things, but not had a chance to see it yet. I've not seen any of the Ben Affleck movies with him as Batman. I've actually not seen a Batman movie since the third Christopher Nolan movie, and that's been like what, at least 12 years ago, at least 14 years ago. So that's actually the last Batman movie I've seen, but it's going to be Michael Keaton for me all day long.
Chris, what about you? Who's your favorite Batman?
I'll keep it simple. Michael Keaton. I think that was a performance that really did it for me. And I think, it's what they always say. It's like when you do a presentation, be careful if you're the one that goes first. So it's like Adam West kind of got the first dibs, but then I think the middle one at the time would have been Michael Keaton, and I really think he set the bar, and I just don't think it's quite been. I mean, it's come close. I did like Christian Bale quite a bit. I didn't think Val Kilmer was horrible, but I just don't think they outshined Michael Keaton.
Yeah. What about you, Will? Who's your favorite Batman of all time?
Of all time, like including everything?
Yep.
Oof. Can I say the 1949 one? No, I'm just kidding. I want to say Michael Keaton because he not only did the voice and he did both Bruce and Batman, and he wore the suit, so that should count for a lot. But for me, it's Kevin Conroy. Like there's so much more material there to work with, and that is whenever I read Batman comics, that's the voice that I read the comics in. And the variety of he didn't just do the animated stuff; he did the Arkham video games, which are stellar. To me, they're like some of the best Batman adventures or experiences ever. So yeah, it's super close. Like ask me again maybe a month from now, it might change, but no, I'll give it to Kevin Conroy by a small margin.
Nice. Well said. Well said. All right, guys. All right, guys, as we wrap this up, I want to first of all, Kyle, sorry.
I just want to interject here. I agree with everything Jay said about Kevin Conroy. Just to throw out there, Kevin Conroy's final performance as Batman will be in the Justice League versus Suicide Squad game coming out in 2023. Check that out. Kevin, I live action, it's Michael Keaton, but I gotta give a quick shout out to Ben Affleck because I think Ben Affleck has gotten a raw deal as Batman because I think he had a great balance of Batman and Bruce Wayne, especially playing that older Batman. So I gotta give a minute out because I do think Ben Affleck deserves a bit more of a shot than what people have given him as Batman.
That's a good call. I liked his moments that he had in him. I just felt that the story around it wasn't great, but I thought that he did have a good balance. I would agree with you there, definitely. Okay, guys, let's wrap this up here. Johnny, I'm going to start with you here. Do you have any critiques about the Batman '89 film? Is there anything that you could go, you know what, I'd change or not? Anything?
Oh, man, that's so tough. I'm not a huge fan of the ending, the cathedral and but I don't know how to do that better. You have to have the one-on-one mano a mano fight with Batman and Joker. Like that has to happen, right? And it has to happen, I guess, in an isolated environment. So the top of the cathedral makes sense. The Batwing crashes. I mean, I don't know. I can tell you I love the first 75% of Batman '89 better than the last 25%. But I don't know how to do it any better.
It's because they killed Bob. That's your problem.
Tracy Walter, right? My enjoyment of Batman '89 was Tracy Walter's lifespan as Bob the Goon. But okay. I don't know how to do it better. Yeah, I don't have a better answer for you.
What about you, Chris? Do you have any critiques on the film?
I felt the same way. I mean, as soon as that gargoyle falls on his leg and he goes like down one, I'm like, as soon as that thing falls, a guy that age, I mean, no offense, he's not exactly a bodybuilder. You're going right down. I mean, there was a lot of times when you had to, or like you go on the vat of chemicals, your skin is now white, your whole personality's changed. The bullet happens to cut your lips to a point where, or your mouth to a point where now you're, I don't know. You had to suspend reality. And so I also kind of thought that too. I was like, man, this old guy, which really isn't that old. He's in his early 50s. When you're like 7 years old, you think somebody who's over 40s, like geriatric. I'm like, man, Batman's going to kick his ass. It's like they had to do something. It's like Johnny said, it had to be a mixture of like the thugs beating him up. And then, at the end, at least he got a few shots in, right? I remember spitting out the teeth. But yeah, I think for me, it was just the fact that even when you read the plot, you're like, but it was just so damn well done. It could have been, like I said, it's kind of like Johnny. You can make a movie about repairing toilets, and I'd still be captivated. So I think Tim Burton, whatever flaws were in that movie, were totally outshined by the soundtrack and just the way it was done.
What about you, William? Do you have a critique of the film?
Oh, I wish you would have warned me this question was coming. I would have thought about it a little harder. I mean, I'll piggyback on what Johnny and has already mentioned about, you saw, like, for me, I don't like that. There's no explanation why the machine guns on the Batwing. You would assume Bruce has the best money to have the best targeting equipment. So there's no explanation why they didn't hit him. Like, that's always bothered me. Like, there's no explanation why they didn't hit him. They just didn't hit him. Like, were they not calibrated? So to me, I'm like, even more than the gargoyles and the actual fight in the cathedral, like, all of that stuff was, I've always found, I never had a big problem with it. But if I could change something, I guess you needed to get him out of the wing and into that more personal fight sequence. Because, again, you need to have the confrontation. The only time I've ever seen a movie where the good guy and the bad guy don't fight is Star Trek 2. It's never sat well with me that he just, the bullseye, ding, 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 and, the machine guns go, the 4 missiles go off, and then nothing. And I'm like, that is the one moment that stands out for me in this movie where I'm like, I don't get it, and it doesn't land with me.
You just touched on one of my biggest pet peeves of the original Star Trek films is the fact that Khan and Kirk do not actually share screen time together in that damn movie.
We can talk do a whole other podcast on Star Trek too, if you want.
That's funny. Kyle, what about you? Any critiques of the film?
It's a similar critique to these guys. Is the ending of the film is something that I don't think that Tim Burton really nailed, and for a couple of reasons. One, I don't think he played enough up on the mental games between Batman and the Joker, whenever even in physical confrontations. I really don't think he nailed that in that fight. And I think the other thing was, too, Tim Burton started a very bad trend, which was killing the villain at the end of the film.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things you always like to have that rogues gallery in case you want to do further sequels down the way. And this started a very annoying trend in comic book movies where I don't think it actually broke until maybe Avengers with Loki or Thor with the MCU with Loki, is that they always killed the bad guy at the end of the film. And it was just a bad trend, and it really kind of hurt them down the line, especially with the Joker, where it's such a intrinsic character to Batman. You need to be able to revisit that character. And when you take that out of the playing cards, especially when you're thinking about a franchise, you really messed yourself up there.
I see all your guys' points, your critiques there. I've already mentioned mine. Mine is a Prince's involvement in the soundtrack. But I did want to mention, and I think you, William, mentioned it too, the big gigantic gun that takes down the Batwing. I wish there was something that is funny. It's a jokery thing to do, but I wish he had picked up, like, I wish he had this gigantic gun somewhere else ready to, take down the Batwing, something much more comical than a 357 with like a 3-foot barrel on it and stuff. But William, did you have something else you wanted to mention?
It's just Kyle mentioned something super interesting, and I just wanted to briefly mention that, it's ironic in a very sad way that the trend started with the Joker where they killed him off so they couldn't use him in another movie, and in The Dark Knight, they kept him alive, but then unfortunately Heath Ledger passed away, so they couldn't use him. So it's like an incredibly ironic, sad twist of fate that the exactly opposite happened years down the line with the same character.
Good point. Yeah. All right, guys. Final question, and I'm going to actually combine these two here. I want to give your final thoughts on this movie, where it stands in your fandom now, and give me the 5x5 question here. What happens 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, or 5 months? We don't know exactly when Batman Returns begins, but have a little fun, like towards the end of this film. What happens right after it, or maybe what you would have liked to have seen after you give your final thoughts on this film and where it stands. Johnny, I'm going to start with you, sir.
Yeah, so final thoughts where it stands with me. Batman is definitely in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. It might even be in my top 5, especially now, just in the last couple of years, because I'm a lot closer to it now than I was 5 years ago, to be honest. But it's definitely one of my all-time favorites. It hits on every single level, and every time I see it, it takes me back to being 9 years old. What was the other question?
What happens 5 minutes after the film, or 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, or 5 years?
Got it.
Pick one, Johnny.
5 minutes after the film, I think you have a lot of confused people wondering how they're going to behave and how they're going to use Batman. We have a giant spotlight that can project something into the sky, but you're really it's a costume vigilante who's going to come out of nowhere to help beat people up. Like, you don't just ease right into that easily. You know, there's going to be a pain period to try to figure out where vigilantism starts and law enforcement stops. And I think that's going to be a pretty awkward thing to phase into. By the time Batman Returns rolls around, which I think is years later, you know, there's a different mayor. The city looks shockingly different for some reason. By the time we get to there, it's a completely different thing. And Batman is just a tool that can be used to be brought in. You also probably have a lot of pissed off police officers, because every time that bat symbol is being shined up into the sky, you're broadcasting to the citizens of Gotham that the cops can't do their jobs right. And, that's an idea that we may or may not be using for a potential sequel to The Oath, and I will leave it there.
Chris, what about you? I want your final thoughts on where this movie stands with you, and give me the 5x5 answer after.
I would say it's definitely in my top 5. I mean, when I look at, I mean, I love Marvel films and then DC films, but I mean, it's just, I always go back to the effect this film had on me. I just don't know that. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's ever been a Marvel film, for instance, as I get older, that strikes me like this one did. So it sort of hits me in the feels for the childhood. It's that flashbulb memory. I guess since Johnny really covered a lot of what I was going to say, I would say that what I really wish I could see after Batman Returns, because I'll take it 5 beyond that, is I would have loved to have seen Billy Dee Williams, Harvey Dent as Two-Face, maybe even Robin Williams as the Riddler. I mean, I just think, what would have happened if Tim Burton could have had a third one, right? So I'm just thinking of, instead of Batman Forever having who it had in it, imagine a third Tim Burton film, you know, going 5 out.
Good call.
I just kind of wonder what that would have been like. In my head, I've kind of gone through, how could they have done it? That's just where I'll leave that.
Will, what about you? Where does this movie stand with you? And give me the 5x5 question.
You know, even like 2 years ago, when we were kind of starting this process, and I spent a couple of car payments on a piece of rubber in my living room right now, I would have said, you know, Return slightly eked over 89, because as a kid, when I watched both of these, you know, Returns is darker, scarier, and kids like to be, you know, sometimes scared a little bit. But it also had like the villains and the goofy villains, the more memorable ones. So I would have said Returns was the better of the two. Now, after studying 89 and the mastery of making it, there's so much stuff we could talk about, and Johnny has an incredible eye. There's just stuff that we...
Oh, come on. It's the contract Johnny made you sign, promising that 89 was going to be your favorite of all time.
You know, I mean, there's some brilliant stuff in that movie when you think about, just like from like, there's this little tidbit that Batman never exits a frame left or right, only up and down. Like, just things like that you don't think about, and just like are in your mind. And just Nicholson being the quintessential like live action Joker, you know, 89 is going to forever live in my mind rent free. It's it started my puberty. When I'm an old man, I'll either be thinking about Star Trek or Batman, one of the two.
Thank you for letting us not forget that.
As far as the 5x5, your question is, I'm thinking maybe 5 weeks, 5 months down the road. If you think about where 89 ends and Return starts, and I also, in my head, it's a couple of years, there's probably going to be a very big power vacuum in Gotham now that basically Palance is gone, so the Joker took over and kind of consolidated the mafia bosses, right? Joker's gone, and now the Joker gang's like going to disperse. What are they going to do? They're probably going to start their own little fiefdoms and try to like pretty much try to go back and figure out who's the next going to be the next big boss. And there's probably going to be infighting in different mafias. Maybe Falcone shows up, maybe some of those Gotham families from the comic book. So I envision probably Batman and Commissioner Gordon even working together. Like, they're probably starting to work together, because by the time Return starts, as soon as Red Triangle Gang shows up, Gordon's like, hit the signal. Like, don't even bring out squad, just bring the signal. So I imagine over the next several months, Batman and Gordon develop a very strong working relationship, working to take out the mob. No supervillains, no crazy stuff that we haven't seen. No Man-Bat, no Clayface, no, not even the more normal ones like Scarface, Scarecrow, none of that stuff. It's Batman's probably taking out the mob, and maybe some weird enforcers here and there. At most, maybe a guy with a flamethrower who calls himself Firefly, but that's what I think. It's the gap, because by the time Return starts, there's really no mafia element in that movie. Like, Max Schreck is really the biggest threat in that movie. It's eventually Penguin and the Red Triangle again, but they're nomadic. They came into Gotham.
Yeah.
There's really no big mafia element. So yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. Batman's taking out the mob.
I like it. Kyle, give me your final thoughts on this film. Where does it stand? And if you want to hit the 5x5, feel free.
Batman 89 is one of the most important comic book movies ever made. Batman 89 set up so much. I think I talked about it a little bit earlier. I think that it's easily in the top 5 of most important comic book movies ever made. For me, it's probably my second favorite Batman film behind The Dark Knight. I think The Dark Knight is probably the truest adaptation of Batman, and I love that movie. But without this film, there's so much that doesn't happen in not only just in comic book type movies, but in fandom in general. And I think in movies in general, the marketing for this movie changed everything. And the importance of this movie is, I think, so significant in just Hollywood history that makes it stand out so much more important. Like I said, it affects so many things. We get Batman, the animated series out of this, so many things. I'm going to go 5 weeks later here for my 5x5. Vicky Vale has had enough of Bruce Wayne and his antics. She's gone back to the Court of Maltese because it's a much more sane place to be than hanging out in the Batcave. Bruce is brooding even more than ever. He's out there fighting crime. I do, however, want to go maybe 5 years later and follow up on the Burton idea. If we got a third Tim Burton film, as Burton was pushing his envelope more and more, there's two villains that I could see him using in a third film. I would have loved to have seen Tim Burton's take on the Scarecrow. I think that would have been great. And I would have loved to have seen him maybe even do something with the Royal Flush Gang. Because there's some of the more obscure Batman villains, but his look on those villains would have probably been something that would have been very iconic. So
okay, I like that.
Those are a couple of thoughts I have.
Okay. I always thought that I would have loved to have seen something with like Barbara Gordon or something at the end, because I think it would have been nice for me personally that Batman Returns, if Batman had some help, sort of speak, had someone else to, help him with the villains, whatever, we were going to see, which we eventually did. And I like the idea of seeing what Tim Burton would have done with a third film. I think that would have been really, really cool. And gotten maybe a Batgirl that we, didn't, instead of the Alicia Silverstone one. But I just
remind me.
What's that?
I said, don't remind me of that.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that I would have loved to have seen. So, well, guys, look, let's go ahead and wrap this up here. Johnny, I want to give you a shout out again here. We've got The Oath. It is on YouTube right now. We need a quadrillion more views on this. We need a call from Burton or a text from Burton to you saying, "Nice job, man. What are you doing next week?"
Thank you, man. Thanks for the plug. The Oath was a dream project. I'm a diehard Batman fan, Batman 89 fan, in case you haven't noticed by now. And it was a dream project to bring to life. And if I can, I'll just use the opportunity. If you like The Oath, please be sure to like the video on YouTube. That's such a small thing to just like and subscribe. Everybody says it, but it really, really helps us defeat the algorithm, and it helps put our content more out there. And while you're at it, please do the same thing for this video you're watching right now. And please like all the Fandom Podcast Network shows that you watch. It really does make a difference for YouTube creators to get that out there. So if you like the movie, please actually click that like thumbs up.
You got a couple of other projects coming out. Briefly talk about them, man.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of production of our Star Trek fan film, which is Farragut Forward. It's the long-running Star Trek Starship Farragut fan series, which dates back to about 2005. We're taking that into the movie era, the Wrath of Khan era, and we're right in the middle of production for that, which we're actually shooting all year long throughout 2023. So that's definitely a marathon, not a sprint. And then in the bottom right corner of the screen, that's Red Eagle 1. That is a short film that we shot in 2020. Chris Conkey is also in that. It is yet to be released. That was self-financed. We did not crowdfund that, so I can get that one out on a little more of a leisurely schedule because we don't have so many financial stakeholders with that one. And we do have a rough cut of it, and there's a few secret ingredients I want to go back and spice up a little bit, and I'm very much looking forward to getting that movie out there. Thanks for the plugs, Kevin.
Cool. That's awesome. Tell people out there how they can reach you and find you, Chaotica Studios and everything.
Yeah, we're Chaotica Studios, KAOTICA on all social media, and then you can catch me directly. The best way to find me is on Twitter, and I'm at that Johnny K guy.
Awesome. Awesome. Chris, first of all, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It was great to get your insight working on The Oath and get your Batman knowledge, man. Thanks again for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor. Thank you so much.
And how they can get a hold of you.
Sorry, I think it cut out there for a second. Did you ask how people?
Yeah, sorry about that. Tell people how they can get a hold of you if they want to look you up.
I'm on Facebook, Chris Conkey, and also I usually use Instagram. So it's at Chris_KONKE. You'll find me on Instagram, and you can look me up on IMDb as well if you're curious what else I've been up to.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks again, man. Appreciate you coming on. And Will, tell people out there how they can find you as well.
I guess they could just look here in this podcast and they'll see me. Yeah. I'm on Facebook. That's usually my biggest platform. Just look up William J. Jay. You'll find me there. I'm on Instagram at William_J87. I'm usually on Twitter as well, but I don't really check that. So I would just suggest really just look at those two and then just look up anything Chaotica does, and I'll probably be in it at some point or another.
Awesome. Awesome. So good to see you guys. And Chris, appreciate you so much for coming on, man. Kyle, where can we find you?
Well, first of all, too, I just want to give a shout out again to Johnny and William. The film is fantastic. Chris, you were fantastic in the film. Thank you so much for being here with us. These guys put in a labor of love, and if you are a fan at all of Batman '89, it's a must-see. And tell your friends, tell people about it, because the work Johnny does and with the love that all of these guys put in this project is absolutely amazing. I also want to shout out Kevin real quick, too. If you're interested in other work with Chaotica, Farragut Forward, which Johnny's working on right now, we did a special on our Union Federation podcast. Go back through our archives, find that special, and find it also on our YouTube channel. There's great stuff about Farragut Forward as well. That is an amazing project Johnny is working on. Of course, you can find me here all over the place on the Fandom Podcast Network, and you can find me on social media under Twitter at AKyleW or on Instagram at AKyleFandom, or just look me up, Kyle Wagner, on Facebook.
Awesome. Yeah, please check out the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel for that Culture Clash episode 212, The Oath, a Chaotica Studios Batman fan film, where we had Johnny and the rest of the guys on there. So make sure you check that out. My name is Kevin. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Also, too, please, like we said, please head to the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. Our master feed for all of our audio podcasts are at fpnet.podbean.com. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. And we are also on Twitter and Instagram as well. Johnny, as always, thank you again so much for coming on. And I am so proud of you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Chris, thank you for spending this time looking back on Batman '89.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Will, what's your next costume, man? Is it Prince?
Dude.
Is it Prince and Bat Dance, or what do you got going on?
Maybe Alexander Knox. I don't know. Maybe I can play 3 characters in the next movie. Because I played Johnny Gough in the. I have a little cameo as Johnny Gough on the ground there. You might not ever notice. So I'm going for 3 characters maybe next time. I don't know. I got my fingers crossed.
Wait, are you going for the Tatiana Maslany Orphan Black approach? Is that what you're telling us?
You know, never say never. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Thank you guys all. Make sure you go check out The Oath on YouTube. As Johnny said, please give it a like, give it a comment, share it. Please, let's get this out there. And next time you watch this film, Batman 1989, please watch that one first, because it's going to get you in the mood. Anyway, thank you guys again for joining us here on the Fandom Podcast Network and the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. This has been Couch Potato Theater. This is Batman 1989. Until next time, guys, we will see you on the couch.